I only intended to help an old man cross the street in freezing Raleigh. But when he gripped my wrist, I saw the antique signet ring and heard him whisper the middle name only my mother ever used. He smiled like he had found something stolen for 30 years, then handed me a blank card with a single line. Tonight, 7 o'clock. If you want to know why they never loved you, my name is Olivia Stewart, and if there is one thing I have learned in 31 years of existing in the periphery of my own family, it is that affection has a price tag. I was reminded of this fact with brutal clarity on the 24th of December, sitting in the overheated living room of my mother's house in Raleigh. The air smelled of pine needles and passive aggression. I held my gift in my lap. It was a candle, not a hand-poured, soy wax artisanal candle from a boutique downtown. It was a generic, red glass jar that smelled vaguely of burnt sugar and chemicals, the kind you find in a clearance bin near the checkout aisle of a drugstore for $4.99. The price sticker had been peeled off, but the sticky residue remained, a small gray smudge against the red glass. "It is cranberry spice," my mother, Kendra, said. She took a sip of her wine, her eyes already drifting past me to where my half-sister was sitting. "I thought it would brighten up your apartment. You know how gloomy it gets in that complex." "Thank you," I said. The words tasted like ash. "I love it. It is about the gesture." "Olivia," she added, her tone dropping into that familiar, preachy cadence she reserved solely for me. "We must be grateful for the thought, not the material value. That is what Christmas is about." I nodded, placing the candle on the floor beside my boots. 2 minutes later, my half-sister, Tessa, opened her gift. It was a small velvet box. Inside lay a pair of white gold earrings, each set with a diamond that caught the light from the Christmas tree and threw it back across the room in fractured rainbows. Tessa gasped, her hands flying to her mouth in a performance of surprise that felt rehearsed. I did the math in my head instantly. I am the payroll and benefits manager at Northline Fabrication Group. Calculating value is literally what I do for 45 hours a week. Based on the cut and clarity visible from 3 feet away, those earrings cost at least $1,200. That was roughly 2 months of my rent. "Oh my God!" Mom Caleb Tessa squealed, launching herself at her father, my stepfather. "These are insane, I love them," Caleb chuckled, patting Tessa on the back with a warmth he had never once directed at me in 20 years of marriage. "Only the best for our girl. You had a hard year. Tess, you deserve a little sparkle." Tessa's hard year consisted of dropping out of her 3rd attempt at a communications degree and totaling her car, which Caleb had promptly replaced. My hard year had involved navigating a corporate merger at Northline, firing 15 people to save the budget, and negotiating a 3% raise that barely covered inflation. "All right, picture time," Kendra announced, clapping her hands. "Everyone by the tree. Come on." I stood up, smoothing the wrinkles in my trousers. I stepped toward the tree, trying to find a spot where I wouldn't be blocking the light. "Oh, Liv, honey," Kendra said, waving a hand at me dismissively. "Could you actually grab the camera? And maybe check the coffee in the kitchen? I think the pot is empty, and Caleb likes a cup with his pie." I froze. For a second, just one heartbeat. I wanted to scream. I wanted to pick up the $4 candle and throw it through the bay window, but I didn't. I did what Olivia Stewart always did. I swallowed the humiliation until it settled like a stone in my stomach. "Sure," I said. "I will get the coffee." I retreated to the kitchen, the sounds of their laughter filtering through the hallway. I could hear the shutter clicking as they took selfies without me. I stood over the sink, gripping the edge of the granite counter until my knuckles turned white. This was the dynamic. It had always been the dynamic. I was the practice child, the one Kendra had before she found a man with money. I was the reminder of a time she wanted to forget, while Tessa was the proof of the life she had secured. I paid for my own tuition at State by working double shifts at a diner. Tessa had her tuition fully covered, plus a living stipend she spent on festivals and clothes. When my car broke down last year, I took the bus for 3 weeks until I saved enough for repairs. When Tessa got a parking ticket, Caleb paid it before she even knew she had received it. I functioned. I survived. I excelled. At Northline, I was the person people feared and respected because I managed the money. I knew who was skimming overtime. I knew who was sleeping with whom based on expense reports. I was precise, sharp, and invisible traits that made me excellent at my job, and invisible in this house. Kendra walked into the kitchen a moment later, holding an empty wine glass. She seemed flushed, happy. She placed the glass in the sink and looked at me. "Why the long face?" "Olivia," she asked. Though she didn't sound concerned, she sounded annoyed. "You are not jealous of your sister, are you?" "That would be very petty. I am not jealous," I said, turning the coffee maker on. The machine hissed and sputtered. "I just think the disparity is a little loud this year. Mom, even for you." Kendra stiffened. She leaned against the counter, crossing her arms over her cashmere sweater. "Life is not equal. Olivia, you are strong. You have always been capable. Tessa is fragile. She needs more support. The world is harder on girls like her." "Girls like her?" I asked, turning to face her. "You mean girls who are allowed to fail without consequences?" "Watch your tone," Kendra snapped. Her eyes narrowed. "You have a good job. You have your health. You should be happy for your family instead of counting pennies like a miser. Life settles out eventually. It is fair in the end." "I know," I said, my voice dropping. "I am starting to see that clearly." The air between us was tight, stretched to the breaking point. Kendra huffed, shaking her head as if I were a disappointing puzzle she couldn't be bothered to solve. "I left my coat on the dining chair," she said abruptly, changing the subject. "My cigarettes are in the pocket. Bring them to me. I need a smoke if I'm going to deal with your mood." She turned back to the living room. I watched her go, the anger simmering low in my gut. I walked into the dining room. Her coat, a beige trench that cost more than my first car, was draped over the back of a chair. I reached into the pocket, my fingers brushing against the hard pack of cigarettes. But as I pulled the pack out, something else came with it. It was an envelope, not a standard white mailing envelope, but something older. The paper was yellowed, the edges soft and worn, as if it had been handled 1,000 times. It fell onto the Persian rug with a soft slap. I bent down to pick it up. There was no stamp, no return address, just handwriting and blue ink that had faded with time. The script was jagged, hurried, E. Weller, and below that, a single word underlined twice: custody. I frowned. The name meant nothing to me. We didn't know anyone named Weller, and custody. My biological father had died in a car accident before I was born. That was the story. That was always the story. Kendra had raised me alone until she met Caleb when I was 4. There was no custody battle. There was no one to fight for me. My thumb brushed the seal of the envelope. It was already open. I saw the edge of a document inside. A thick, legal-grade paper. "What are you doing?" The voice was sharp enough to cut glass. I looked up. Kendra was standing in the doorway. She wasn't looking at my face. She was staring at the envelope in my hand, and for the first time in my life, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. Not annoyance, not disappointment, panic. She crossed the room in 3 strides, snatching the envelope from my fingers with a violence that startled me. She shoved it deep into her coat pocket, her chest heaving. "Mom." I stepped back. "What is that?" "Who is E. Weller?" She stared at me, her breathing ragged. Then, like a switch had been flipped, the mask slammed back into place. Her face smoothed out, but her eyes remained cold. "Hard pebbles. It is nothing," she said. Her voice was steady, but too loud. "Old legal papers from the estate planning. Boring tax matters. Do not snoop. Olivia, it is beneath you." It said custody. I pressed, and that paper looked 30 years old. I said, "Drop it," she hissed. She stepped closer, invading my personal space, smelling of expensive wine and secrets. "Do not go digging for things that do not belong to you. You have a roof over your head because of this family. You have a history because of me. Do not make me regret inviting you tonight." The threat hung in the air, explicit and ugly. This wasn't about tax papers. I knew tax papers. I dealt with the IRS for a living. You did not carry 30-year-old tax documents in your coat pocket to a Christmas party unless you were afraid to leave them at home. Here are your cigarettes, I said, placing the pack on the table. My hand was trembling, but I forced it to be still. I didn't stay for pie. I didn't stay for the coffee I had just brewed. I walked into the living room, muttered a headache excuse to Caleb and Tessa, who barely looked up from their new jewelry, and grabbed my coat. The drive back to my apartment was a blur of red taillights and freezing rain. The heater in my 10-year-old sedan rattled, blowing lukewarm air that smelled of dust. I drove in silence, the radio off, my mind replaying the image of that envelope. E. Weller. When I finally unlocked the door to my apartment, it was 9 o'clock at night. The silence of my living room usually felt like a sanctuary. Tonight, it felt like a cage. I sat on my beige sofa, the one I had bought secondhand, and pulled out my phone. I scrolled through the family group chat. Tessa. Look at these earrings. Best Christmas ever. Caleb, beautiful. We are so proud of you. Sweetie, Kendra. Such a lovely night, a perfect family moment. There was no mention of me. No, drive safe, Olivia. No, thanks for the coffee, Olivia. I scrolled back through months of messages. November 12th, Olivia. Can you look at Caleb's tax return? He thinks he overpaid. October 04. Olivia. Tessa needs a reference for that rental application. Use your corporate title. September 15th. Mom's birthday dinner. Reservation is at 6. Do not be late. Bring cash for the tip. Requests. Demands. Instructions. Not a single, how are you? Not a single, are you happy? I was a utility to them. I was an appliance. Useful when working. Invisible when not. I thought about the envelope again. Custody. Kendra had reacted as if I had found a loaded gun, and maybe I had. I sat there in the dark, the lights of Raleigh flickering outside my window. I had work tomorrow. The end of the year was the busiest time for payroll. There were bonuses to calculate, tax forms to issue, audits to prepare. My team needed me. The company needed me. I was the reliable one, the one who never cracked, the one who showed up early and stayed late because I had nothing else to go home to. I looked at my phone again. The group chat was still active. Tessa posting photos of her champagne glass. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud crack. It was a quiet, final severance, a wire being cut in the dark. I opened my work email app. I drafted a new message to the HR director and my immediate supervisor. Subject: personal leave. I will be taking the morning off tomorrow due to a personal emergency. I will be in after 1 o'clock. I hit send before I could talk myself out of it. It was the first time in 7 years I had taken unscheduled leave. The first time I had prioritized my own curiosity over their convenience. I wasn't going to let this go. I was going to find out who E. Weller was, and I was going to find out why my mother was terrified of a piece of paper she carried next to her heart. The cheap candle was still in my bag near the door. I walked over, picked it up, and dropped it into the trash can. The heavy thud it made was the most satisfying sound I had heard all day. The morning air in Raleigh was sharp enough to cut skin. It was a wet, gray cold that seeped through the layers of my wool coat and settled deep in my bones. I was not supposed to be here. I was supposed to be at my desk on the 4th floor of the North Line building, buried in spreadsheets and payroll variances. Instead, I was walking down West Hargett Street at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday, nursing a paper cup of bitter coffee and feeling the phantom itch of a life I was beginning to realize did not fit me. Taking the morning off felt illicit. My phone had buzzed 3 times in my pocket, likely my assistant wondering where the quarterly projections were, but I ignored it. I was walking with no destination. My mind still looping around the events of the previous night, the envelope in my mother's pocket, the name E. Weller, the terrified look in Kendra's eyes that she had masked so quickly with aggression. I stopped at the intersection, waiting for the light to change. The traffic was heavy, a stream of delivery trucks and sedans rushing to beat the morning clock. The city noise was a dull roar of engines and tires on wet asphalt. That was when I saw him. He was standing on the opposite corner, teetering on the edge of the curb like a bird on a wire in a storm. He looked out of place, not just because of his age, which I estimated to be late 70s, but because of his stillness. Everyone else was rushing. He was frozen. He wore a heavy charcoal overcoat that looked too big for his frame, and he leaned heavily on a dark wooden cane. The walk signal flickered on. The crowd surged forward, a wave of bodies glued to their phones, parting around the old man like water around a stone. He took a step, then hesitated. The light was short at this intersection. I knew the timing. 20 seconds. He was not going to make it. I did not think. I just moved. I crossed the street against the flow of the crowd, dodging a bicycle courier who swore at me. When I reached the old man, the light was already flashing the countdown. 10 seconds. A delivery truck in the turning lane revved its engine, the driver impatient, inching forward. "Sir," I said, reaching out, "the light is changing. We need to move." He did not look up. He was staring at the puddle of oil and rainwater by his boots. "Sir," I said, louder this time. The truck honked, a jarring blast that made me jump. I grabbed his arm. It was a reflex, a necessity to pull him out of the path of the turning vehicle. My hand closed over the sleeve of his coat, but as we stepped up onto the safety of the sidewalk, his hand shot out and gripped my wrist. His grip was shocking. It was not the frail grasp of a confused pensioner. It was iron. It was desperate. He pulled my hand up, bringing it close to his face. The movement forced my sleeve to ride up, exposing the pale skin of my inner wrist. Right there, just below the pulse point, was the birthmark I had hated my entire life. It was a small, irregular blotch of dark pigment, shaped distinctly like a falling drop of ink. The old man froze. The noise of the city seemed to drop away, leaving us in a vacuum of silence. He stared at the mark, his eyes widening. They were gray, the color of the storm clouds above us, and they were terrifyingly lucid. "It is you," he whispered. The sound was barely a breath. I tried to pull my hand back, instinct flaring. "Let go of me." He did not let go. He looked up from my wrist to my face, searching my features with a hunger that unnerved me. It was not predatory. It was the look of a man who had lost something precious and had just found it in the wreckage of a burning house. "Your name," he demanded. His voice was raspy but commanding. "Tell me your full name." "Let go, or I will scream," I said, my voice hard. I was not a damsel. I was a woman who walked to her car alone in parking garages at night. I knew how to make a scene. "Tell me," he insisted, his fingers tightening, not hurting, just holding, anchoring. "Olivia," I snapped. "Olivia Stewart." He exhaled, a long, shuddering sound. "And your mother? Her name is Kendra." It was not a question. It was a statement of fact, delivered with a weight of bitterness that made me flinch. "How do you know that?" I asked, the fear finally spiking in my chest. "Who are you?" The truck that had been waiting turned the corner, its tires splashing water onto the sidewalk. The old man flinched, his balance wavering. His cane slipped from his other hand and clattered to the concrete. The noise broke the spell. He released my wrist, stumbling slightly. I caught him by the elbow to steady him, then bent down to pick up the cane. It was heavy. Much heavier than the aluminum ones you could buy at a pharmacy. It was made of polished dark wood, perhaps mahogany or walnut. The handle was solid silver, tarnished in the crevices but smooth where a hand would rest. I turned it over in my hand as I straightened up. Engraved into the silver head were 2 letters in an intricate, flowing script, E, and below the initials, a tiny, detailed crest, a hawk holding a key. My breath hitched. E. Weller, the name on the envelope, the name my mother had tried to hide. I looked at the man. He was straightening his coat, regaining his composure. Up close, I began to see the details I had missed in the chaos of the street. His coat was old, the cuffs slightly frayed, but the fabric was cashmere. I knew cashmere. I knew the weave. This was a garment that had cost $2,000 30 years ago. On his left wrist, visible as he adjusted his sleeve, was a watch. It was a Patek Philippe Calatrava with a leather strap that had been worn smooth. This man was not homeless. He was not senile. He was a ruin of something magnificent. "You drop this," I said, holding out the cane. My hand was shaking slightly. He took it. His fingers brushed mine, cold and dry. "Thank you. Olivia." He said my name as if he were testing the weight of it on his tongue. "You know who I am." I said, "It was an accusation. You are the name on the envelope." He tilted his head, a spark of amusement lighting his gray eyes. "She still has it. I am surprised Kendra kept anything of mine. She usually prefers to burn history." "Who are you?" I asked again. "Why did you grab my arm?" He reached into the inner pocket of his coat. I tensed, ready to run, but he only produced a small, cream-colored card. He held it out to me. I took it. There was no logo, no company name, no phone number. Just an address in the historic district of Raleigh, and a time written in fountain pen. 7:00 p.m. "I am the man who has been looking for you since the day you were taken," he said. "Taken," I laughed. A harsh, incredulous sound. "I was not taken. I live with my mother. I have lived with her my whole life." "Have you?" he asked. He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Do you feel like you live with her? Or do you feel like a guest who has overstayed their welcome? Do you feel like you are paying rent for the privilege of breathing their air?" The words hit me like a physical blow. It was specific. It was surgical. It was exactly how I had felt the night before, standing in the kitchen while they took photos without me. "You are running a scam," I said, though my voice lacked conviction. "I do not know what you want, money or leverage, but I do not have either. I do not want your money. Olivia," he said softly, "I have more money than God, and just as much silence." He looked at the intersection, then back at me. "You have a right to know," he said. "You have a right to know why they never loved you." He turned to walk away. "Wait," I called out. He stopped but did not turn back. I could not let him go. The curiosity was a hook in my throat. "I will not come to a strange address at night. If you want to talk, we talk now. Public place. 5 minutes." He turned then, a slow smile spreading across his face. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a chess player who had just watched his opponent move exactly where he wanted them to. "You are cautious," he said. "Good. You inherited that from me. The coffee shop on the corner. 10 minutes. I need to sit down." We walked to the coffee shop in silence. He moved slowly, counting every step, his cane tapping a rhythm against the pavement. I walked beside him, my mind racing. I was a rational person. I dealt in facts, in audits, in tangible proof. This situation was insane. I should be calling the police. I should be walking away. But the initials on the cane matched the envelope, and the birthmark. How did he know about the birthmark? I wore long sleeves. I always wore long sleeves at work, even in the summer. I wore bracelets or watches. It was my secret shame, a flaw I hid. Inside the coffee shop, the air was warm and smelled of roasted beans. I ordered a black tea for him and another coffee for myself. I paid. He did not offer. He simply walked to a table in the corner, away from the windows, and sat down with his back to the wall. When I brought the cups over, he did not touch his. He just watched me. He watched me take off my coat. He watched me sit. He watched me add sugar to my coffee. It was unnerving, like being examined under a microscope slide. "Stop looking at me like that," I said. "I am looking for the resemblance," he said. "You have my chin. Stubborn. But the eyes, you have your father's eyes. My father died before I was born." I said automatically. It was the script I had been given. "Is that what she told you?" He let out a dry chuckle. "Convenient. Dead men do not hire lawyers. Dead men do not ask for paternity tests." I froze, the cup halfway to my mouth. "What are you talking about?" "My name is Elias Weller," he said. 31 years ago, my son had a daughter. She was born in a private clinic outside of Charlotte. She was 6 pounds, 4 ounces. She had a birthmark on her left wrist shaped like a tear, and she had a middle name that was not put on the final birth certificate, a name her father whispered to her mother before everything went wrong. He leaned forward across the table, his eyes locked onto mine. "Elowyn," he whispered. I dropped my spoon. It clattered against the saucer, a sharp ringing sound that made the barista look over. Elowyn. I had not heard that name in 20 years. It was not on my driver's license. It was not on my social security card. It was a name I remembered from a fever dream when I was 5 years old, sick with pneumonia. My mother had been sitting by my bed, thinking I was asleep, stroking my hair. She had called me that, my sweet Elowyn. When I asked her about it later, she denied it. She said I was hallucinating. She said it was a nonsense word, but I had never forgotten it. It was a secret piece of myself I kept hidden in the dark. "How do you know that?" I asked. My voice was trembling now. I could not stop it, because I chose it. Elias said, "It is a family name, my grandmother's name." He sat back, satisfied. He did not need a DNA test in that moment. He saw the recognition in my face. Kendra was ambitious, Elias said, his tone turning clinical. She was beautiful, and my son was young. We thought it was a temporary infatuation. We were wrong. When she became pregnant, we offered to support the child. We wanted to be involved, but Kendra wanted more than support. She wanted a settlement. She wanted a golden ticket. He paused, his fingers tracing the rim of the teacup he had not touched. "We refused the marriage," he said, "so she took the leverage. She took you. She vanished. We hired investigators. We chased leads for 5 years. But she changed her name. She changed your name. She buried you in the system. And eventually, the trail went cold." My stepfather. I said, "Caleb. He adopted me." "Caleb is a fool," Elias said dismissively. "A useful idiot who gave her a new last name to hide behind. But he is not the one I am worried about. It is the others." "What others?" "The people who helped her hide," Elias said. "You do not disappear from a family like mine without professional help. Someone erased the paper trail. Someone forged the documents. And those people are still around. They are still watching." He reached into his pocket again and pulled out a pocket watch. He checked the time, then snapped it shut. "I cannot stay long," he said. "If I stay too long, they will notice the pattern." "Who is they?" I demanded. "You are speaking in riddles. If you are my grandfather, why wait 30 years? Why now?" "Because I am dying, Olivia," he said bluntly. The words hung between us. He said it without self-pity. He said it like he was reporting the weather. "I have 6 months," he said, "maybe less, and I have an estate that needs to be settled. I have a legacy that is currently set to dissolve into a board of directors who care nothing for my blood. I needed to find you. I needed to know if you were real, or if you were just a ghost story," I told myself. He stood up, gripping his cane. "Come to the address tonight," he said. "I have a lawyer present. I have the files. I have the proof. If you look at it and decide I'm a crazy old man, you can walk away. I will give you a check for $50,000 just for your time, and you never have to see me again." $50,000. That was my annual salary. He offered it like it was pocket change. Why, I asked. "Because if you are who I think you are," he said, looking down at me, "you are the only thing in this world I have left." He turned and walked out of the coffee shop. I watched him go, a gray figure dissolving into the gray morning. I sat there for 20 minutes. My coffee went cold. The shop filled up with the mid-morning rush, laughter and conversation swelling around me. But I felt completely isolated. Elowyn. The name echoed in my head. I finally stood up. I felt heavy, burdened with a sudden, crushing exhaustion. I walked out to my car, a battered sedan parked 3 blocks away to avoid the expensive garage fees. I unlocked the door and slid into the driver's seat. The leather was freezing. I pulled my phone out of my bag. I needed to call someone. Jordan. I needed to call Jordan Pike. She was the only person at Northline who I trusted, the only one who knew how much I hated my family. But before I could dial, a notification banner slid down from the top of the screen. It was an email. The subject line was blank. The sender was a string of random characters, an encrypted alias. My thumb hovered over the screen. My heart hammered against my ribs. I tapped the notification. The email opened. There was no greeting, no signature, just one line of text in plain, black font. Do not go. They are looking at you right now. I dropped the phone. It fell into the passenger seat, the screen glowing bright in the dim car. I looked up, scanning the street, scanning the windows of the buildings around me. A woman walking a dog. A man delivering packages. A black SUV parked 2 cars down with tinted windows. Was it them? Was it the mother who hid custody papers in her pocket? Or was it the people Elias had warned me about? I locked the car doors. The sound of the locks engaging seemed deafeningly loud. I looked at the card in my hand again. 7:00 p.m. I put the car in gear. I was terrified. I was shaking. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't just the girl standing in the corner of the picture. I was the focus, and I was going to that meeting. The decision to go was not a leap of faith. It was a calculation of risk versus regret. I spent the afternoon in my apartment, pacing the length of my living room, the mysterious email burning a hole in my mind. Do not go. They are looking at you right now. If I stayed home, I remained Olivia Stewart, the invisible daughter, the corporate drone, the woman who swallowed insults with her coffee. If I went, I could be walking into a trap, a scam, or something dangerous. But staying felt like dying a slow, suffocating death of never knowing. I chose the danger, but I prepared for it like the payroll manager I was. I did not bring a weapon. I brought data redundancy. At 6:15, I called Jordan Pike. Jordan was the only person at Northline who knew that my family emergencies usually involved my mother needing bail money or my sister crashing a car. She was sharp, cynical, and loyal to a fault. "You are insane," Jordan said immediately, her voice tinny through the speakerphone as I laced up my boots. "You meet a random old guy on the street. He grabs you, tells you a fairy tale, and now you are going to a secondary location. This is literally the plot of every true crime podcast I listen to." He knew the name, Jordan, I said, checking the battery on my voice recorder. He knew Elowen. Nobody knows that name, not even Caleb. Okay, spooky, granted, Jordan conceded. But what about the email? They are watching. Who is they? The CIA. The Mafia. Your mom's bridge club. I do not know, I said. That is why I am sending you my live location. I am setting a check-in timer. If I do not text you a safe word by 8 o'clock, you call the police. What is the safe word? Audit, I said. You are such a nerd. Jordan groaned, but her tone was serious. Listen to me. Liv, you are walking into something heavy. If this guy has money, real money, then he has enemies. You are not just dealing with family drama anymore. You are getting pulled into gravity. Be careful. I hung up and checked my reflection. I wore a dark blazer, jeans, and boots. Nothing flashy, nothing that said, air. I looked like someone going to handle a business transaction, which, in a way, I hoped this was. The address on the card led to a building in the Glenwood South District. It was not a creepy warehouse or an abandoned house. It was a sleek, mid-rise office building with glass walls that reflected the city lights. It looked expensive. It looked legitimate. I parked my car 2 blocks away, scanning the street for the black SUV I had seen earlier. I saw nothing suspicious, just the usual evening traffic. I walked to the entrance at 6:55. The lobby was empty except for a security guard at the front desk. He was a large man, built like a linebacker, wearing a suit that strained at the shoulders. "Can I help you, miss?" he asked, not looking up from his monitor. "I am here to see Mr. Weller," I said. "I have an appointment at 7. The guard looked up then. His expression shifted from boredom to immediate, sharp attention. "Ms. Stewart?" he said. He did not ask for ID. "They are expecting you. Penthouse floor. The elevator needs a key card. I will swipe you up." "They are expecting you." The phrase sent a chill down my spine. The elevator ride was silent and fast. When the doors slid open, I stepped into a reception area that smelled of leather and lemon polish. It was a law office, but not the kind with billboards on the highway. This was the kind of office that did not need to advertise. A woman was waiting for me. She was in her 60s, with silver hair cut in a sharp bob and glasses perched on the end of her nose. She wore a suit that probably cost more than my car. "Ms. Stewart," she said, extending a hand. "I am Audrey Sloan. I represent Mr. Weller. Thank you for coming." Her grip was firm, her hand dry. "Is he here?" I asked. "He is waiting in the conference room," Audrey said, "along with Mr. Red. Please, follow me." She led me down a hallway lined with abstract art. We entered a large conference room at the end of the hall. The view was spectacular, the entire Raleigh skyline glittering in the dark. Elias Weller was sitting at the head of a long mahogany table. He looked different than he had on the street. He had shed the heavy coat and the confused demeanor. He was wearing a simple gray sweater and slacks, but his posture was regal. He looked less like a grandfather and more like a chairman of the board. Sitting to his right was a younger man, maybe 35, with messy brown hair and a 5 o'clock shadow that looked intentional. He was typing on a laptop and did not look up when I entered. "You came," Elias said. He did not smile. He simply nodded, acknowledging a fact. "I came for answers," I said, remaining standing. "And I have friends who know exactly where I am. If I do not check in, the police will be here in 20 minutes. The man with the laptop snorted. He stopped typing and looked at me. His eyes were tired, dark circles emphasizing a weary intelligence. "Smart," the man said. "Paranoid, but smart. I like her." "This is Miles Red," Elias said, gesturing to him. "He is a private investigator. He is the one who found you." "Technically, you found me on the street," I corrected. "He just what stalked me." "I located you," Miles said, closing his laptop. "I found the digital footprint your mother tried to scrub. It was not easy. She, or whoever helped her, was thorough. But everyone leaves a ghost in the machine if you know where to look." "Sit down, Olivia," Elias said gently. "Please." I pulled out the chair at the opposite end of the table. I wanted distance. I placed my phone on the table, face up, recording app running in the background. "Talk," I said. Elias placed his hands on the table. "I told you this morning that my son had a daughter. My son, Julian, died in a boating accident 30 years ago. It was sudden. He was 22. He was brilliant, reckless, and deeply in love with a woman named Kendra." Hearing my mother's name in this room felt surreal. "Kendra was not from our world," Elias continued, "which was fine. I did not care about pedigree. I cared that she made him happy. But when Julian died, things changed. The grief made us all difficult. Kendra was pregnant. She was 6 months along. We wanted to ensure his child was taken care of. So why did she run?" I asked. "If you were offering support, why run?" "Because we wanted custody shared." Audrey, the lawyer, interjected. Her voice was calm, measured. "The Weller Family Trust stipulates that any heir must be raised with certain educational and residential requirements. Kendra viewed this as an attempt to take the baby away from her. We viewed it as ensuring the child's future. It was a legal dispute. It became hostile." "She demanded a buyout," Elias said, his voice hardening. "A lump sum, $3 million, in exchange for full custody and waiving any future claims on the estate." My stomach turned. $3 million. "We refused," Elias said. "We said we would provide a monthly allowance, housing, everything, but we would not hand over a lump sum of cash to a 20-year-old grieving woman with no financial literacy. We filed for emergency custody to prevent her from leaving the state." "And then?" I asked. "And then she vanished," Miles said. "October 14th, 3 weeks before her due date, she cleared her bank accounts, ditched her car, and disappeared. We hired PIs. We filed police reports. Nothing. She had help. Someone created a new identity for her. New social security number. New history. By the time you were born, Kendra Stewart did not exist on paper. And neither did you, Elias added softly. Olivia Weller was never born. You were registered as Olivia Stewart, father unknown. I sat in silence. It was a lot to process. It fit, though. It fit the way Kendra was always paranoid about official paperwork. It fit the way she never talked about my father. It fit the way she looked at me not with love, but with calculation. I was not a daughter. I was a failed negotiation. That is a hell of a story, I said, my voice steady despite the shaking in my hands. But that is all it is. A story. You have no proof that I am that baby. Elias reached for a manila folder in front of him. He slid it across the long, polished table. It stopped inches from my hands. I opened it. The first thing I saw was a photograph. It was old, grainy, clearly taken with a zoom lens from a distance. It showed a young woman sitting on a park bench. She looked different. Her hair was longer, lighter but the sharp angle of the jaw. The set of the mouth, it was Kendra. There was no doubt. She was heavily pregnant. I flipped the page. Another photo. This one was of a baby, a newborn. The baby was swaddled in a hospital blanket. A hand was holding the baby's arm up. My breath hitched. On the baby's inner wrist, clear as day, even in the old photo, was the mark. The ink drop. I have that mark, I whispered. I know, Elias said. I saw it this morning. It is a genetic anomaly. My sister had it. My great-grandfather had it. It skips generations sometimes. But it is specific. I looked up at him. This could be faked. Photos can be doctored. Which is why we want to do this properly, Audrey said. She opened her briefcase and pulled out a small, sealed kit. A DNA test, buccal swab. We send it to a neutral. Third-party lab in Daikish, no affiliation with the Weller family, no affiliation with your mother, blind results. We can have the answer in 48 hours. I looked at the swab. It looked like a simple Q-tip in a plastic tube. It looked harmless. But I knew that swiping the inside of my cheek would detonate my life. And if it is a match, I asked, then you are the sole heir to the Weller estate. Elias said, you are my granddaughter, and I have a lot of years to make up for. And if it is not, Elias looked at me, his expression softening into something incredibly sad. Then I am an old man who made a mistake. I will apologize. I will pay you for your trouble. And I will disappear from your life. You will never hear from me again. He leaned back. I am not asking you to love me. Olivia, I am not asking you to call me Grandpa. I am asking you to let me verify the truth. If you are my blood, I owe you the protection you were denied. I owe you the truth about why you were raised in the shadow of a sister who shares none of your burden. The mention of Tessa stung. It was the precise needle to the nerve. You know about Tessa? I asked. I know everything, Miles said from behind his laptop. I know she drives a BMW while you drive a 10-year-old Honda. I know she went to private school while you worked at a diner. I know your mother puts you in the back of family photos. We have been watching for 6 months. Olivia, we needed to be sure before we approached you. I felt a surge of anger. You watched them treat me like garbage and you did nothing. We had to be sure, Elias said, his voice firm. And we had to be safe. If we moved too early, Kendra could have run again. She is good at running. We needed to wait until you were an adult, until you were independent, until we could talk to you without her interference. I looked at the swab again. I thought about the candle, the $4 candle. I thought about the envelope, custody. I thought about the way Kendra's eyes had filled with terror. She knew. She had known all along. She had stolen a life from me, a life where I might have been wanted, and replaced it with a life where I was tolerated. I will do it, I said. I reached for the kit. Audrey handed it to me. I tore the plastic wrapper. It made a sharp snick sound in the quiet room. I swabbed my cheek. 10 seconds. I put the swab back in the tube and sealed it. 48 hours, Audrey said, taking the tube and placing it in a biohazard bag. I will have the courier run this tonight. What do I do in the meantime? I asked. You go home. Elias said. You go to work. You act normal. Do not tell Kendra. Do not tell your sister. If Kendra knows we have made contact, she will panic, and a panicked person is dangerous. She already knows something is up, I said. I found the envelope. I asked about the name. Then you need to lie, Miles said. You need to be the good, obedient daughter for 2 more days. Can you do that? I have been doing that for 30 years, I said bitterly. I think I can manage 2 days. I stood up. My legs felt shaky, but my mind was clear. I was doing this. I was crossing the line. Thank you, Olivia, Elias said. He did not stand. He looked exhausted, the energy of the meeting draining out of him. You have no idea what this means to me. I am not doing it for you, I said honestly. I am doing it because I am tired of being the only person in the room who does not know the punchline. I turned to leave. I walked down the hallway, the silence of the office pressing in on me. The elevator ride down felt like a descent back into reality, but a reality that had shifted on its axis. I walked out of the building and into the cold night air. The wind hit my face, grounding me. I pulled my phone out of my pocket to text Jordan the safe word. Audit. But before I could hit send, the phone buzzed in my hand. It was a call. Mom. I stared at the screen. The picture I had set for her contact was a generic flower because I didn't have a single photo of just the 2 of us. I let it go to voicemail. It buzzed again immediately. Mom. I rejected it. Then, a text message appeared. The banner flashed across the top of my screen. Bright and urgent. Kendra. Where are you? Come home. Right now. We need to talk about the envelope. Caleb is very angry. I stared at the word. Right now. Caps lock. She never used caps lock unless she was screaming. My heart hammered against my ribs. They knew. They didn't know I was with Elias, but they knew I was slipping the leash. The timing was too coincidental. I looked around the street. The shadows seemed deeper now. Was the black SUV there? Was Miles right? Were they watching? I texted Jordan, audit, but stay by the phone. Then I got into my car and locked the doors. I sat there for a moment, the engine cold, the text message glowing on the seat beside me. Come home right now. I wasn't going home to a family. I was going home to a crime scene where the victim was my own past. I started the car. 2 days. I just had to survive 2 days. The drive to my mother's house usually filled me with a dull, low-level dread, the kind you feel before a dentist appointment where you know you have a cavity. Tonight, that dread had sharpened into something jagged. I pulled into the driveway at 8:15. The house was blazing with light. Every window was illuminated, casting long, rectangular beams onto the manicured lawn. It looked less like a family home and more like a defensive fortification preparing for a siege. I killed the engine but sat in the car for a moment. My phone felt heavy in my pocket. The audio recorder still running, capturing the silence of my own breathing. I had promised Elias Weller 2 days of acting normal. I realized now that normal for the Stewart family was a psychological war zone. I unlocked the front door with my key. The lock clicked loudly, a sound that seemed to echo through the entire structure. In the living room, Olivia, it was Caleb's voice, not a greeting, a summons. I walked down the hallway. The photos on the wall seemed to mock me. Tessa winning a beauty pageant, Tessa graduating, Caleb and Kendra on a cruise. I was a ghost in this hallway, present only in the gaps between frames. I entered the living room. The staging was theatrical. Kendra and Caleb were sitting on the beige sectional sofa, side by side, their posture rigid. They looked like a tribunal, and standing behind the sofa, leaning against the wall with her phone raised, was Tessa. The red recording light on her screen was steady. Why is she filming? I asked. Stopping at the edge of the carpet, I refused to sit. Sitting put me at a lower elevation, a subtle psychological disadvantage they had exploited for years. It is for our protection, Tessa said, her voice dripping with a saccharine concern that made my skin crawl. In case you start screaming again, in case you have another episode, we need a record. Live. For your doctors. I do not have doctors. Tessa. And I do not have episodes, I said calmly. Put the phone away. Leave it, Kendra commanded. She did not look at Tessa. Her eyes were locked on me. Her face was pale, her makeup flawless, but brittle, as if a sudden movement might crack the foundation. Sit down, Olivia. I will stand. Where were you? Kendra asked. I called you 6 times. You know Caleb worries when you are erratic. I was working, I lied. It was a weak lie, but I needed to gauge their reaction. End of year payroll. I told you this yesterday. Do not lie to me, Kendra snapped. She reached onto the coffee table and picked up a piece of paper. It was a printout. She threw it onto the floor at my feet. I looked down. It was a grainy photo of me standing on the corner of West Hargett Street that morning, talking to Elias Weller. We have friends downtown, Caleb said, his voice deep and rumbling. People who look out for us. People who saw you holding hands with a strange old man in the middle of traffic. I was helping him cross the street, I said, keeping my voice level. He nearly got hit by a truck. And then you went for coffee, Kendra said, her voice rising. For 20 minutes, with a stranger. Do you have any idea how dangerous that is? Do you have any idea how desperate that makes you look? He is not a stranger, is he? I asked. I looked directly into her eyes. He is the name on the envelope you tried to hide last night. E. Weller. Kendra flinched. It was small, a tightening of the muscles around her mouth. But I saw it. Caleb shifted his weight, his heavy boot tapping against the floor. He is a con artist, Kendra spat. The venom in her voice was startling. He targets women like you, lonely, invisible women with low self-esteem. He tells them a sob story about lost relatives or inheritances. He gets their social security numbers, their bank details, and then he bleeds them dry. I was trying to protect you. Olivia. That envelope. It was a warning notice from the police about scammers in the area. I hid it because I did not want to scare you. The lie was so bold, so clumsy, it was almost insulting. A warning notice that says custody in 30-year-old ink. I asked. A scammer who wears a Patek Philippe watch and knows my middle name. The name you told me never existed, Elowen. The room went silent. The air pressure seemed to drop. Tessa lowered her phone slightly, her eyes darting between me and our mother. She did not know that name. She had never heard it. Kendra stood up. She walked toward me, stopping just inside my personal space. She smelled of nervous sweat and expensive perfume. He got into your head, she whispered. He did exactly what they do. He fed you a fantasy. Do you really think some rich old man is looking for you? Look at yourself. Olivia, look at your life. You are a payroll clerk. You live in a rented apartment. You are nobody. Why would a man like that want you unless he was trying to steal what little you have? I am a manager, I corrected instinctively. And he did not ask for money. He offered it. That is the hook, Caleb shouted, slamming his hand on the armrest. That is how they get you, God. You are stupid. We raised you better than this. Did you? I asked. I looked at Caleb, then back at Kendra. Did you raise me? Or did you just keep me around to do the taxes and clean the kitchen while Tessa got the jewelry? You are so ungrateful. Tessa chimed in from the back. She raised the phone again, zooming in. Always the victim. Oh, poor Olivia. I have to pay my own rent like an adult. You want to destroy this family because you are jealous. You have always been jealous of me. Shut up, Tessa, I said. I did not yell. I just said it with the cold, flat authority of a woman who fires people for a living. Tessa gasped, looking at Kendra for backup. But Kendra changed tactics. I saw the shift happen in real time. The aggression drained away, replaced by a frantic, weeping desperation. She reached out and grabbed my hands. Her palms were clammy. Olivia, baby, please, she said, her voice trembling. We are fighting because we are scared. We love you. We are terrified that this man is going to hurt you. You do not know how cruel the world is. We have been hard on you. I know we have pushed you, but it was to make you tough. It was to prepare you. She squeezed my hands. It felt like a trap closing. Come back home, she pleaded. Move back into your old room. Let's start over. No more rent. No more distance. We will be a real family. We will take care of you. I looked at her. For a second. Just a split second. The little girl inside me who had waited 30 years for this invitation wanted to say yes. She wanted to believe that the mother standing in front of her was real. But then I saw Caleb's eyes. He wasn't looking at me with love. He was looking at me with calculation. There is just one condition, Kendra said, wiping a tear that I was 90% sure was fake. If you come back, we need total transparency, no more secrets. We need to make sure this man has not already compromised you. What do you mean? I asked, pulling my hands away. We need to secure your accounts, Caleb said. He stood up, towering over the coffee table. Just for a few weeks, until the threat passes, you give us your banking passwords, your email logins. I will monitor them. If this Weller guy tries to transfer money or steal your identity, I will stop it. I will keep you safe. The silence that followed was deafening. They did not want to protect me. They wanted to audit me. They wanted to know if Elias had given me money, and if he had. They wanted access to it, or worse, they wanted to ensure I didn't have the resources to hire a lawyer. You want my passwords? I asked. You want access to my salary. It is for safety, Olivia, Tessa said. God, why do you have to make everything a fight? Mom is trying to help you. I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. You think I'm going to hand over my financial independence to the people who charged me for groceries when I was 18? You think I'm going to let you control the one thing I actually own? We are your parents, Kendra said, her voice hardening again. The mask was slipping. We have a right to protect our assets. Your assets. I stepped back. I am not your asset, Kendra. I am your daughter, allegedly. Do not walk away from me, Kendra shrieked as I turned toward the hallway. If you walk out that door, you are on your own, no safety net, no family. I have never had a safety net, I said over my shoulder. I have been falling for 30 years. I just finally realized I hit the ground a long time ago. If you leave, Caleb boomed, his voice echoing off the hardwood floors. I will call Northline tomorrow morning. I stopped. I turned around slowly. Excuse me, Caleb smiled. It was a nasty, triumphant curl of the lip. I know your VP, Olivia. We play golf at the same club. I will call him. I will tell him that you are having a mental breakdown. I will tell him that you are being scammed, that you are erratic, paranoid, and potentially compromising company data. How long do you think a payroll manager lasts when her own father reports her as unstable? My blood ran cold. This was not just toxic family drama. This was nuclear. He was threatening my career. The only thing I had built for myself. The only place where I had worth. You would not, I said. Try me, Caleb said. Give us the passwords. Sit down. Be a good girl. Or watch your career burn by noon tomorrow. I looked at them. The three of them. A tableau of greed and malice. Kendra, the architect, Caleb, the enforcer, Tessa, the witness who enjoyed the show. I realized then that Elias Weller was right. They had never loved me. They had simply managed me, and now that I was becoming unmanageable, they were ready to liquidate the asset. Go ahead, I said. My voice was quiet, but it did not shake. Call him, but remember, Caleb, I manage the benefits. I know about the consulting fees your company tried to bill us for last year that were rejected for fraud. I kept the paperwork. You want to talk to my VP? Let's make it a conference call. Caleb's face turned a violent shade of red. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. I had bluffed partially. I had seen the paperwork, but I hadn't kept it. But he didn't know that. I turned and walked out. Olivia! Kendra screamed. Olivia! Get back here! I slammed the front door. The sound was a punctuation mark on the end of a terrible sentence. I ran to my car. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped my keys in the gravel. I scrabbled for them in the dark, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I expected Caleb to burst out the door, to physically drag me back inside, but the door stayed shut. I got the car started and peeled out of the driveway, spraying gravel onto their pristine lawn. I drove fast, faster than I should have, putting distance between myself and that house. I checked my rearview mirror. Headlights, a pair of bright white LED beams, were behind me. They had pulled out of a side street 2 blocks from my mother's house. I turned left. They turned left. I turned right onto the highway ramp. They followed. It was a silver sedan. Not Caleb's truck. Not Tessa's BMW. I reached for my phone, hitting the speed dial for the number Miles Red had given me. "Stuart," Miles answered on the first ring. His voice was calm, a stark contrast to the panic rising in my throat. "I am being followed," I said. "Silver sedan, late model. I left my mother's house 5 minutes ago." "I see them," Miles said. "I have a tracker on your car. Olivia, I told you we were watching. Keep driving. Do not go to your apartment yet. Drive toward the Beltline. Loop around the city." "Who is it?" I asked. "Is it Caleb?" "No," Miles said. "It is a private contractor. Low rent, probably hired an hour ago. Your family works fast when they are scared." "They threatened my job," I said, my voice breaking. "They tried to take my bank accounts." "Expected," Miles said. "They are trying to cut off your resources. They want you desperate. Listen to me. Olivia, I just got an alert from the county clerk's office." "What alert?" "Someone just put in an expedited request for a certified copy of your birth certificate," Miles said. "And not just yours. They requested the amendment history." "What does that mean?" "It means they are checking to see if the forgery held up," Miles said grimly. "They are checking to see if the name Weller is still buried deep in the microfiche, or if they successfully burned it all those years ago. They are panicking, Olivia, which means we are right. I cannot do this for 48 hours, I whispered. The headlights behind me were blinding in the mirror. "You have to," Miles said. "Lose the tail, take the next exit, go through the gas station, and get back on the highway northbound. My partner is in a black truck 3 cars back. He will intercept them." I did as he said. I swerved across 2 lanes, taking the exit at 50 miles per hour. The silver sedan followed. I cut through the gas station, tires squealing. As I merged back onto the on-ramp, I saw a black pickup truck slam on its brakes in front of the sedan, blocking it in. I was free. For now. I drove to my apartment complex, but parked 3 buildings away. I entered through the back service door. I locked my apartment door, engaged the deadbolt, and wedged a chair under the handle. I sat on the floor in the dark, clutching my knees. 48 hours. 48 hours until the DNA results came back. 48 hours until I had the weapon I needed to kill the version of Olivia Stewart they had created. My phone buzzed. A text from Kendra. "You are making a mistake. We are the only ones who will ever protect you." I blocked the number. Then I sat in the silence, waiting for the sun to rise on a battlefield I was only just beginning to understand. The air in the apartment felt thin, charged with the static of a storm that was about to break the world in half. 48 hours is a strange amount of time. It is long enough for a panic attack to peak and subside 12 times, but it is short enough that you cannot actually change anything about your reality. I spent those 2 days moving through my life like a sleepwalker. I went to Northline. I approved timesheets. I nodded at Jordan in the break room when she gave me meaningful looks. I ignored 14 calls from my mother and 32 text messages from Tessa that ranged from, "We are worried," to, "You are a selfish bitch." When I walked back into the glass-walled conference room on Thursday evening, I felt hollowed out. The adrenaline was gone. All that was left was a cold, vibrating anxiety. The cast was the same. Elias Weller at the head of the table, Audrey Sloan, the lawyer. To his right, Miles Red, the investigator, typing on his laptop. The city lights of Raleigh were a blurred backdrop of gold and white behind them. There was no small talk this time, no offers of tea or coffee. Audrey picked up a single sheet of paper from the center of the table. It was heavy bond paper, the kind used for official decrees. She held it out to me. I took it. My hands were steady. I looked at the numbers in the center of the page. Probability of paternity 99.99%. Relationship grandfather, granddaughter. I stared at the number, 99.99. It was a mathematical certainty. It was the end of Olivia Stewart, father unknown. I looked up at Elias. I expected tears. I expected a hug. I expected the cinematic moment where the music swells and the family is reunited. Elias did not move. He sat perfectly still, his hands clasped on the mahogany table, his gray eyes locked on mine. He looked older than he had 2 days ago. He looked like a man who had been carrying a stone up a mountain for 3 decades and had just been told he could put it down. "I am sorry," Elias said. His voice was rough, quiet. "I am sorry I am late," he continued. "I am sorry that you lived 31 years thinking you were unwanted. That is a failure that I will take to my grave." "You did not know," I said. My voice sounded thin in the large room. "I should have known," he corrected. "I should have burned the state of North Carolina to the ground to find you. But I let lawyers handle it. I let the system handle it. And the system failed us both." He gestured to the file in front of him. "There are 2 versions of the truth. Olivia, there is the version your mother told you, the version where she was the young, abandoned victim who raised a child alone against the odds. That is the family version. It is the story that kept you guilty and grateful." He opened the file. "Then there is the court version, the version that exists in signed affidavits and sealed orders." He slid a document toward me. It was a photocopy of an old yellowed form. The header read, "Temporary Guardianship Agreement." "Read the date," Elias said. I looked at the date stamp. October 12th, 1992, 3 weeks before I was born. "Read the signature," he commanded. I looked at the bottom of the page. The signature was looped, decorative, unmistakable. "Kendra A. Weller." I froze. "Weller, she used your name." "She did not just use it," Audrey explained, leaning forward. "She was never married to Julian, but she legally changed her name to Weller 6 months before he died. She wanted the status. She wanted the connection. And on this document, she signed temporary guardianship of her unborn child to Elias and his wife, in the event of any complications. "She agreed to give you custody?" I asked, my mind reeling. "She agreed to let us help," Elias said. "We set up a trust. We set up a nursery in my home. We paid for the best doctors in Charlotte. We were ready to be a family, not a perfect family, but a present one." He flipped the page. "And then," Elias said, "she realized that being a Weller meant rules. It meant she could not spend the trust fund on herself. It meant she could not use the baby as a bargaining chip for a cash settlement. So she ran." He pointed to another document, a police report. "Missing person Kendra Weller." "She ran," I whispered. "She stole you," Elias said. "Let's call it what it is. She took a child who had a home, a family, and a future, and she vanished into the night because she realized she could not cash out the trust fund unless she controlled the asset. You were the asset, Olivia." I felt sick. A physical wave of nausea rolled through me. I looked at the papers again, and then I saw it, the document that broke me. It was a copy of a birth certificate application, not the one I had in my file at home. This was the original, filed at the hospital in Charlotte before she disappeared. Name of child, Olivia Elwyn Weller, father Julian Thomas Weller, mother Kendra. Ann Weller. I traced the name with my finger. Olivia Elwyn Weller. It wasn't just a name, it was an entire identity. It was a person who was supposed to exist, a girl who took piano lessons, a girl who went to college without working double shifts at a diner, a girl who was looked at with pride, not annoyance. I thought about my childhood. I was never beaten. I was never starved. If you looked at my life from the outside, it looked fine. I had clothes, I had food, I had a roof, but abuse is not always bruises. Sometimes it is erasure. I remembered being 7 years old. sitting at the kitchen table while Kendra and Caleb planned a vacation to Disney World. They talked about it for an hour. Then, casually, Kendra looked at me and said, "Oh, Liv, you will stay with Mrs. Gable next door. It is just a special trip for Tessa's birthday. You understand, right? You are a big girl." I understood. I always understood. I was the guest. I was the furniture. I was the thing that took up space. I remembered the clothes. Tessa always got new clothes, bright, trendy, expensive. I got the sensible clothes, the clearance rack items, the things that didn't fit quite right. "You are hard on clothes, Olivia," Kendra would say. "Why waste money on something you will just ruin?" It wasn't about the money. It was about the message. You are not worth the investment. "She erased me," I said. I didn't realize I was crying until a tear hit the paper, dark against the white page. "She erased everything." "She had help," Miles said. He turned his laptop screen toward me. "This is the part that kept us from finding you. Your mother is smart, but she is not a mastermind. She is a grifter, to disappear this completely, to forge a birth certificate that scrubs the father's name and changes the last name to Stewart before she even met Caleb. She needed a professional." On the screen was a photo of a man. He looked slimy even in the pixelated headshot. He was wearing a cheap suit and a forced smile. "This is attorney Marcus Vane," Miles said. "Small-time lawyer in Shelby, disbarred in 2005 for fraud. We found a wire transfer from an account linked to your mother to his firm, dated 3 days after you were born, $5,000. That was a lot of money in '92. "She paid him to fake my birth certificate," I asked. "She paid him to bury the Weller name," Audrey corrected. "He filed a delayed birth registration under Stewart, claiming a clerical error. He created a paper trail that made it look like you had always been a Stewart. It was a clumsy forgery, but in the days before digital databases, it worked. It was enough to throw our investigators off the scent." "So Caleb," I started. "Caleb is a useful idiot," Elias said again. "He adopted you legally when you were 5, which sealed the records even tighter, but the original fraud, the erasure of Julian. That was Kendra and Marcus Vane." I sat back in the chair. The rage that had been simmering in my gut for days had cooled into something solid, something heavy and sharp, like a blade. "She looked me in the eye," I said quietly. 2 nights ago, she looked me in the eye and told me to be grateful. She told me I was lucky to have a roof over my head. "She has been gaslighting you since you could speak," Elias said, "because she knows that if you ever found out the truth, the real truth, not just the emotions, she would lose everything, not just you. She would lose the narrative she built her life on." Elias leaned forward. The grandfatherly softness was gone. In its place was the steel of a man who had built an empire. "I do not want revenge, Olivia," he said. "Revenge is messy. Revenge is emotional. I want justice. I want the record corrected." "What do you mean?" I asked. "I mean, I want your name back," Elias said. "I want the courts to recognize you as my heir. I want the fraud exposed. I want Kendra to stand in front of a judge and explain why she stole a child and forged federal documents." "She will go to jail," I said. "It wasn't a protest. It was a calculation." "Maybe," Audrey said. "Statutes of limitations are tricky with fraud, but the forgery of vital records, that is a felony. And the misappropriation of the trust funds she managed to access before she ran, that is theft." "She accessed the trust?" I asked. "Small amounts," Elias said. "Before we froze it, she took enough to buy that house she lives in. The down payment on the life she built with Caleb. That was my son's money. That was your money." "Of course it was. The house where I was made to sleep in the smallest room, the house where I was the maid. It was bought with my inheritance." "So what do we do?" I asked. "You have the DNA. Is that enough?" "It is enough to start a fight," Audrey said. "But if we want to end it quickly, if we want to prevent them from dragging this out for years and draining your energy, we need the smoking gun." Elias looked at me. "You said you saw an envelope in her coat pocket." Yes, I said. It said, Weller in custody. That is the original, Elias said. That is the copy of the custody agreement she signed, the one she stole from Julian's desk before she ran. If she still has that, it proves she knew. It proves premeditation. It proves that everything she did afterward was a conscious act of fraud, not just a mother protecting her child. Why would she keep it? I asked. Why not burn it? Because it is leverage, Miles said. Or a trophy. Or maybe she kept it as an insurance policy, thinking she could still blackmail the Wellers one day if the money ran out. Criminals are sentimental about their crimes. Elias reached across the table. He did not touch me, but his hand hovered near mine. I need you to get it, he said. I stared at him. You want me to go back there? I want you to go back there and play the role one last time, Elias said. They are terrified right now. They are desperate to get you back under their control. Use that. Go home. Apologize. Tell them you were confused. Tell them you blocked my number. Let them think they won. And then find that envelope, Elias said. And any other papers she is hoarding. If we have the original document with her signature, combined with the DNA, she has no defense. We can file for a declaratory judgment and have your name restored in a week. I looked out the window at the city. Somewhere out there, in a suburban house filled with beige furniture and fake smiles. My mother was probably drinking wine and telling Caleb how ungrateful I was. She had stolen my name. She had stolen my father. She had stolen 30 years of love I could have had, and she had bought herself a nice life with the proceeds. I will do it, I said. It will be dangerous, Miles warned. If they catch you snooping again. They won't catch me, I said, because they do not think I am smart. They think I am the help. They think I am the quiet and stupid girl who does the dishes. I stood up. I picked up the copy of the birth certificate, the real one. Olivia Elowin Weller. I will go tomorrow, I said. I will tell them I am coming for dinner. I will tell them I am ready to give them my passwords. Elias nodded slowly. You are a Weller, Olivia. We do not get mad. We get even. No, I said, walking to the door. I do not want to get even. I just want to be the one who finally sends the bill. I sent the text message at 9 o'clock in the morning on Friday. It was short, contrite, and carefully crafted to hit every dopamine receptor in my mother's brain. I am sorry about the other night. I was overwhelmed. I want to come over and talk. I will bring the passwords. The response came in less than 30 seconds. Of course. Honey, come for dinner at 6. We made pot roast. We just want you safe. The speed of the reply was the first red flag. Kendra never forgave that quickly. Usually, a transgression of the magnitude I had committed walking out, ignoring calls, threatening to expose Caleb required a week of silence followed by a groveling period. Immediate acceptance meant she was desperate. It meant the trap was already set. I spent the rest of the day prepping like I was going into a hostile acquisition meeting. I met Miles Red in the parking lot of a grocery store 2 miles from my mother's house at 5:30. You are wired, Miles said, handing me a small, flat device that looked like a car key fob. This is not just audio, it is a proximity logger. If you get within 3 feet of any other Bluetooth devices like phones recording you, it logs the timestamp. Keep it in your pocket. And you? I asked, clipping the fob to my belt loop under my blazer. I will be parked down the street with a long lens camera, Miles said. I can see into the living room and the study if the blinds are open, if things go south, if Caleb gets physical. You say the word pineapple loud enough for the recorder, and I call the cops. No heroics. Pineapple, I repeated. Ridiculous. Safety words usually are, he said. Go get them. Olivia. I drove the last 2 miles with my heart thumping a slow, heavy rhythm against my ribs. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was focused. The fear had burned off, leaving a cold, hard clarity. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked exactly as it had 2 nights ago. The perfect lawn, the warm lights, the lie of domestic bliss. I walked up the steps and unlocked the door. Mom, I called out. In the kitchen, sweetie. I walked in. The smell of pot roast thyme, onions, red wine hit me. It was the smell of my childhood, a sensory trigger that made my stomach clench. Kendra was standing by the stove, stirring gravy. She turned as I entered, her face arranging itself into a mask of tragic relief. She rushed over and pulled me into a hug. It was tight, suffocating. She smelled of expensive Chardonnay. Oh, Olivia. She sighed into my hair. I was so worried. We thought you were having a breakdown. I am fine, I said, stiffening but not pulling away. I just needed space. We know, she soothed, pulling back to look at me. Her eyes were wet, but her pupils were sharp, scanning my face. You look tired. Have you been sleeping? Not really, I said. It has been a lot. Well, you are home now, she said. She gestured to the island. Pour yourself some wine. Caleb and Tessa are in the living room. I poured a glass of water instead. I needed a clear head. I walked into the living room. Caleb was sitting in his recliner, watching the news. Tessa was on the sofa, scrolling on her phone. When I entered, Tessa didn't look up immediately. She waited 3 seconds, a calculated power move, before glancing at me with a smirk. Look who decided to show up, Tessa said. Did you run out of money already? Tessa, be nice, Caleb said, though his tone lacked any real reprimand. He stood up, towering over me. Good to see you, Olivia. I hope you are ready to be sensible. I am here to talk, I said, and to fix things. Good, Caleb said. Did you bring the list, the passwords? It is in my bag. I lied. I patted my tote bag, which I had set down on the armchair near the door. But I want to eat first. I haven't eaten all day. Of course, Kendra called from the kitchen. Dinner is ready. Come sit. We moved to the dining room. The table was set with the good china, the plates usually reserved for company, not family. It was another sign. They were wooing me. We ate in a tense silence for 10 minutes. The only sounds were the clinking of silverware and Caleb chewing loudly. So, Kendra said finally, putting down her fork, tell us about this phase you are going through, this obsession with the old man. It is not a phase, I said carefully. I just had questions. He knew things. Mom, he knew about the birthmark. He guessed, Kendra said dismissively. It is a common mark. It is shaped like a teardrop, I said. And he knew the name Elowin. Kendra dropped her fork. It hit the plate with a loud clang. I told you, she said, her voice tight. That is a nonsense word. You made it up when you were a kid. I didn't make it up, I said. It is on my original birth certificate, the one you filed in Charlotte before you ran. The air left the room. Tessa looked up from her plate, confused. Caleb stopped chewing. What are you talking about? Caleb asked, looking at Kendra. Charlotte. She is delusional, Kendra said quickly. She reached for her wine glass, her hand shaking slightly. This is exactly what I meant about a breakdown. She is inventing histories. I saw the paper. Mom, I said. I kept my voice low. Calm. I saw the guardianship agreement you signed in 1992. Kendra A. Weller. Stop it. Kendra slammed her hand on the table. Stop saying that name. Why? I asked. Because it proves you stole me. Because it proves you took money from the trust and then ran away. I saved you, she screamed. The mask shattered completely. Her face twisted into something ugly and raw. Those people, the Wellers, they were monsters. They wanted to control everything. They wanted to take you away from me and raise you in their cold, miserable mansion. I took you to save you. You took me because they wouldn't give you $3 million, I said. Silence. Absolute, ringing silence. Tessa let out a small, shocked laugh. 3 million, is that true? Shut up, Tessa, Kendra hissed. She turned back to me, her eyes venomous. You ungrateful little brat. I gave up everything for you. I lived in a trailer park for 2 years so they wouldn't find us. I changed my name. I scrubbed toilets. And this is how you repay me, by believing a senile old man over your own mother. I believe the paperwork, I said. I believe the DNA test. You took a test, Caleb asked. His voice was dangerous now, low and rumbling. Yes, I said. 99.9% match. Elias Weller is my grandfather. Caleb stood up. He threw his napkin onto the table. You are done. You hear me? You are done in this town. I told you what I would do. Sit down. Caleb, I said. I didn't flinch. You are not going to call anyone. Because if you do, I will release the audio recording of this dinner. You are recording us, Tessa shrieked. She grabbed her phone from the table and immediately pointed it at me. Oh my God. You are psycho. I am live streaming this right now. Everyone is going to see how crazy you are. Go ahead, I said to Tessa. Stream it. Let everyone hear Mom admit she kidnapped a child for money. Tessa froze. She looked at Kendra. Kendra was pale, her breathing shallow. Put the phone down, Tessa, Kendra whispered. But Mom, I said put it down, Kendra roared. Tessa lowered the phone, sulking. What do you want, Olivia? Kendra asked. She sounded exhausted, defeated, but I knew better. She was calculating. I want the truth, I said, and I want the original papers, the ones you kept, the ones in the envelope. I burned them, she said instantly. Years ago. Liar, I said. I saw the envelope 2 days ago, in your coat pocket. That was just old tax returns, she stammered. Show me, I said. If it is tax returns, show me. Prove I'm crazy. I stood up. Where are they? In the study. I started walking toward the hallway. You cannot go in there, Caleb shouted. He moved to block me, his large frame filling the doorway. That is my private office. I am not scared of you, Caleb, I said. Get out of my way. Or what? He sneered. You gonna hit me? No, I said. But the private investigator parked down the street taking photos of us right now might have an issue with you restraining me. Caleb glanced at the window. The blinds were open. He hesitated. Let her go. Caleb, Kendra said from the table. Her voice was icy. Let her look. She won't find anything. I am not stupid enough to leave things lying around. Caleb stepped aside. I walked past him, feeling the heat radiating off his body. I entered the study. It was a small room lined with cheap bookshelves and a large metal filing cabinet in the corner. I went straight to the cabinet, locked. Open it, I said to Kendra, who had followed me to the doorway. I lost the key, she said, leaning against the doorframe, crossing her arms. She looked smug. I looked around the room. My eyes landed on the bookshelf, specifically on a framed photo of the family. It was from 10 years ago. Caleb, Kendra, and Tessa were center frame, smiling on a beach. I was on the far left, half of my arm cut off by the frame edge. I had stared at that photo for years, hating it, hating how I was literally marginalized, but I remembered something. I remembered seeing Kendra hide things behind pictures when I was a kid. Spare cash. Emergency numbers. I walked over to the bookshelf. Don't touch that, Kendra said, her voice rising in pitch. I picked up the frame. I turned it over. The backing was loose. I slid it open. There, taped to the back of the cardboard stand, was a small, silver key. I turned to look at her. The blood drained from her face. You are predictable, Mom, I said. You always hide things where you think I am too hurt to look. I walked to the filing cabinet. The key slid into the lock smoothly. Click. I pulled the top drawer open. It was full of hanging folders. Taxes 2018, taxes 2019, house deed, and way at the back, a thick manila envelope without a label. I pulled it out. It felt heavy. Give that to me. Kendra lunged. She was fast, but I was expecting it. I sidestepped, and she stumbled into the desk. Caleb, she screamed. Get it from her. Caleb rushed into the room. Pineapple? I shouted. I didn't know if Miles could hear me through the walls. but the word made Caleb pause just long enough. He looked confused. "Pineapple," he asked. "The police are on their way," I bluffed. Miles heard the signal. Caleb stopped. He looked at Kendra, then at the window. He was a bully, not a criminal mastermind. He didn't want to go to jail. I opened the envelope. Inside were the originals, the birth certificate, Olivia Elowen Weller, the custody agreement signed by Kendra, and a notebook, a small, black ledger. I flipped the ledger open. It was a list of payments. Nov 1992. Cash withdrawal, $5,000. Vane Deck, 992. Cash withdrawal, $2,000. Rent, Jan, 1993. Cash withdrawal, $10,000. Car. It was the accounting of the stolen money. She had kept a record. Of course she had. She was obsessive about money. "You kept a ledger?" I asked, looking at her with genuine disbelief. "You documented your own embezzlement." "It was my money," Kendra shrieked. "I carried you, I birthed you, I deserve that money." "It was a trust fund for a child," I said. "And you spent it on a Honda Civic." I shoved the documents into my bag. I had what I needed. "I am leaving," I said. "Do not follow me." "Olivia," Kendra said, her voice trembling, "if you take those papers, you destroy this family. Think about Tessa. Think about your sister. She has nothing to do with this." "Tessa is 24, I said. "Maybe it is time she learned that actions have consequences, something you never taught her." I walked out of the study. Tessa was standing in the hallway, phone still in hand, but she wasn't recording anymore. She looked terrified. "Is it true?" she whispered as I passed her. "Did you really steal her?" I didn't answer. I walked out the front door and down the steps. The cold air hit my face like a slap. I got into my car. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely get the key in the ignition. I locked the doors. I saw Caleb come out onto the porch. He stood there under the yellow porch light, watching me. He didn't chase me. He just watched, his face twisted in hate. I drove away. I drove until I reached the grocery store parking lot where Miles was waiting. He was leaning against his car. He gave me a thumbs up. "I got the photos," he said when I rolled down the window. I saw the struggle. I saw him block the door. "We have enough for a restraining order." "I have the papers," I said, holding up the envelope. "And a ledger." "A ledger." Miles laughed. "You are kidding. She kept a ledger." "She is a narcissist," I said. "She thinks she was right." "Go home, Olivia," Miles said. "Go to your apartment. Lock the door. Do not answer the phone. We meet with Elias tomorrow morning to file the motion." I drove home. I felt lightheaded. I felt victorious. I parked my car and walked up to my apartment. I needed a shower. I needed to wash the smell of pot roast and lies off my skin. I unlocked my door and tossed my bag on the sofa. I checked my phone. No calls from Kendra. She knew it was over, but there was an email notification. From HR. Northline Fabrication Group, subject notice of immediate suspension. My heart stopped. I opened the email. "Ms. Stewart, we have received a credible anonymous report regarding the theft of sensitive employee payroll data from your terminal. Attached are logs indicating unauthorized downloads occurring at 5:00 p.m. today. Effective immediately. Your access to all company systems has been revoked pending an internal investigation. Do not report to work on Monday. Regards, Human Resources." I stared at the screen. 5 o'clock. I was in the grocery store parking lot with Miles at 5:30. I wasn't even at the office, but someone was, or someone had remote access. "Caleb," I whispered. He hadn't called the VP to say I was crazy. He had done something worse. He had used his connections, his friends downtown, to frame me. I looked at the time on the email. It was sent 10 minutes ago. Right after I left their house, they realized they couldn't stop me from taking the papers. So they decided to destroy the one thing I had left to lose, my career. I sank onto the floor. I had the birth certificate. I had the millions. I had the grandfather. But as of right now, I was an unemployed thief. My phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. "We told you to be sensible. Now you have nothing." I looked at the message. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I picked up the black ledger I had stolen from Kendra's safe. I flipped to the back pages. There were names there too, not just payments. Names of people she had paid off over the years. And one of the names, written in her jagged script next to a payment for consulting, was familiar. P. Halloway. It Security. I smiled. It was a cold, terrifying smile in the empty apartment. They thought they had taken my job. They didn't realize that by framing me, they had just given me the trail to bury them all. "I don't have nothing," I whispered to the empty room. "I have the receipts." The Human Resources Office at Northline Fabrication Group was a room designed to strip you of your confidence. It was painted a sterile, non-threatening beige, kept at a temperature that was just slightly too cold, and contained a round table that made everyone feel exposed. I sat on one side. Across from me sat Linda, the HR director, and a man from IT named Gary, who refused to make eye contact with me. "This is a serious accusation." "Olivia," Linda said. She pushed a stack of papers toward me. "Data exfiltration, unauthorized downloading of executive compensation schedules, gross misconduct." I did not touch the papers. I looked at the timestamp on the cover sheet. 5 o'clock on Friday, I said. My voice was calm. The kind of calm that comes before a hurricane. I was not in the building at 5 o'clock on Friday. I left at 4:30 to attend to a family matter. My badge swipe log will confirm that. "We have the logs from your terminal," Gary said, finally looking up. He looked pained. I had helped Gary fix his withholding tax issue 3 months ago. He knew I was not a thief. "The login came from your workstation. The credentials were yours." "Remote access?" I asked. "No," Gary said. "Physical login. Someone was at your desk." My stomach turned. I knew exactly who it was. Or rather, I knew who had orchestrated it. "I keep my password on a sticky note inside my locked drawer," I said. "It is against protocol, I know, but the only people who have a master key to that drawer are me and the cleaning crew. Unless someone talked their way past security, we are investigating that," Linda said, her voice hard. "But until we clear this up, Olivia, we have to place you on unpaid suspension. You know the policy. We cannot have you accessing financial data while there is an open ticket for theft." "This is retaliation," I said. "My stepfather threatened to destroy my career on Friday night. By Saturday morning, I am being framed for data theft." "This is not a coincidence, Linda. This is a domestic dispute spilling into the workplace." "That sounds like a personal problem," Linda said, standing up. "Hand over your badge and your company phone. Security will escort you out." The walk to the elevator was the longest 3 minutes of my life. People I had worked with for 5 years, people whose baby shower funds I had organized, whose overtime I had approved, stared at their screens as I walked by with a security guard trailing me. I was a pariah. When I reached the lobby, the glass doors slid open, and I stepped out into the humid Raleigh air. I felt naked without my badge. I felt untethered. "Liv." I turned. Jordan Pike was standing near the smoking area, holding a lit cigarette. She wasn't smoking. She looked furious. "They suspended you," she hissed, walking over to me. "Indefinitely," I said. "They said I stole payroll data." "Bull," Jordan spat. "Listen to me. I was at the front desk on Friday afternoon covering for Sarah while she went to the bathroom. Around 4:45, a guy called, said he was your brother-in-law, said it was an emergency and he needed to get a file from your desk for you. He was really charming. Liv, like, scary charming." "Caleb," I whispered. "It wasn't my brother-in-law. It was my stepfather. He had the charm of a used car salesman when he wanted something." "He got Sarah on the line when she came back," Jordan continued. "I heard her say, 'Oh, I can let him in. He is family.' She must have let someone up, or she logged in for him." "Sarah has a master key for the floor," I said. The pieces clicked into place. Caleb didn't hack the mainframe. He hacked the people. He used the concerned family member routine that he had perfected over 30 years. "I am going to kill him," I said. "Do not kill him," Jordan said. "Sue him. I will testify. I will tell them about the call." "Be careful, Jordan," I warned her. "If they see you talking to me, you are next." "Let them try," she said. "Go, fix this." I drove straight to the Weller office. I didn't have anywhere else to go. My apartment felt compromised. My workplace was a crime scene. The only safe space left in the world was the boardroom of a grandfather I had met 3 days ago. When I walked in, Elias was standing by the window looking out at the city. Audrey was on the phone, her voice sharp and legal. Miles was spreading documents out on the table. "They suspended me," I announced, throwing my purse on a chair. Elias turned. His face was a mask of cold fury. "On what grounds?" "Data theft," I said. "Caleb or someone he hired talked their way past the receptionist on Friday. They accessed my terminal. They made it look like I was downloading salary data." "It is a classic discredit tactic," Miles said, not looking up from his papers. "If you are fired for theft, your credibility as a witness in a fraud trial is shot. They can paint you as a disgruntled, unethical person who is just after money. It destroys your character before you even step into a courtroom." "It is brilliant," I admitted bitterly. "Evil, but brilliant." Audrey hung up the phone. "I just sent a cease and desist letter to Caleb Stewart and Kendra Stewart," she said. "I cited tortious interference with a business contract, harassment, and defamation. If they contact Northline again, if they even drive past the building, I will have a judge sign a restraining order so fast their heads will spin." "That does not get my job back," I said. "I am suspended without pay." "Audrey, in the corporate world, that is a death sentence. Even if I am cleared, the stigma sticks. I am the payroll manager who was accused of leaking salaries." Elias walked over to the table. He placed a hand on the back of a leather chair. "Quit," he said. I looked at him. "Excuse me?" "Resign," Elias said simply. "Walk away. You do not need that job. Olivia, you are the heir to the Weller estate. You have a trust fund that has been accumulating interest for 30 years. You have more money right now in unclaimed assets than you would make at Northline in 5 lifetimes." "I am not quitting," I said. "Why?" Elias asked. "Why fight for a job that treats you like a criminal the moment a rumor starts? Let me take care of you. Let me pay your bills. You can focus on the case. You can rest." I felt a spike of anger. It wasn't at Elias, exactly, but at the assumption. "I worked for that job," I said, my voice shaking. "I waited tables to pay for the degree that got me that job. I worked 60-hour weeks to get that promotion. It is the only thing in my life that is mine, not yours, not Kendra's, mine." I took a step toward him. "If I quit now, I am just trading one dependency for another," I said. "Kendra controlled me with guilt. You want to control me with money. I am not doing it. I am not going to be a kept woman, even if the keeper is my grandfather." Elias stared at me. For a moment, I thought he was offended. Then, a slow smile spread across his face. It was a proud smile. "You really are my son's daughter," he said softly. Julian was stubborn too. He refused to work at the firm because he wanted to be a boat builder. He wanted to make something with his own hands. "I am keeping my job," I repeated, "and I am going to clear my name." "Then we fight on 2 fronts, Miles said. "Audrey handles the family, you handle the internal investigation, but I found something that might help you understand who you are dealing with." Miles slid a folder across the table. "I dug into Caleb's past," Miles said. "Before he met your mother, before he became the upstanding suburban stepfather." I opened the file. It was a court docket from the year 2012. State Farm Insurance vs. Caleb Stewart. "He owned a small roofing company," Miles explained. "There was a storm, a lot of hail damage. Caleb was accused of submitting paperwork for repairs that never happened. He was falsifying invoices, forging homeowner signatures." "Did he go to jail?" I asked. "Settled out of court," Miles said. He paid $15,000 in restitution and agreed to dissolve the company. But here's the kicker, the notary who signed off on the fake affidavits. It was a woman named Sheila Vane. Vane, I said. Related to Marcus Vane, the lawyer who forged my birth certificate. His sister, Miles said. It is a network. Olivia, a small, dirty network of people in this town who scratch each other's backs. Your mother didn't just meet Caleb by accident. She found a man who played the game the same way she did. They are partners in crime, literally. So he knows how to fake paperwork, I said, and he knows how to manipulate systems. Exactly, Miles said. Which means the data theft at your office was not a hack. It was a plant. He probably didn't download anything. He likely just transferred files to a flash drive to trigger the security alert, then left the drive there or threw it away. He doesn't want the data. He wants the alert. I need to prove it, I said. I need to prove he was in the building. We will, Miles said. I am pulling the security footage from the building across the street from Northline. If we catch him walking in the front door at 4:45 on Friday, you have your exoneration. In the meantime, Audrey said, you need to go dark. No social media, no texts to Tessa, no calls to your mother. Lock everything down. I spent the next 2 hours with Miles, securing my digital life. We changed every password to a random string of 20 characters. We set up two-factor authentication on everything, routed to a burner phone Miles gave me. I printed out my bank statements, my emails, my text logs. I created a timeline of every interaction I had with my family for the last 6 months. It felt less like accounting and more like preparing for war. By 8 o'clock that night, I was exhausted. My head was throbbing. There is one more thing, Elias said. He had been quiet for the last hour, reading through the black ledger I had stolen from Kendra's safe. His face was gray. What? I asked. This ledger, Elias said, tapping the black notebook. You saw the payments to the lawyer. You saw the payments for the car. Yes, I said. She spent the trust money. It is worse than that, Elias said. The dates do not stop in 1993. There are entries here from 2005, 2010, last year. I frowned. How you said you froze the trust when she ran? I did, Elias said. But the Weller Foundation, our charitable arm, has a separate disbursement system for emergency grants. It is designed to help employees or distant relatives in crisis. It is not monitored as strictly as the family trust. He turned the book around so I could see the page. June 2018. Grant approval. $25,000. August 2019. Medical hardship. $18,000. She has been applying for grants from my foundation, Elias said, his voice trembling with rage. Under false names, creating fake hardships, and someone inside the foundation has been approving them. Who? I asked. I do not know yet, Elias said, but look at the note next to the 2018 entry. I looked at the jagged handwriting. Tessa tuition. My blood ran cold. She stole from your charity to pay for Tessa's college, I asked. She stole from the family she taught you to hate, Elias said. She vilified me to your face, called me a monster, and then used my money to buy her favorite daughter a degree. I stood up. I felt sick. It wasn't just greed. It was a level of hypocrisy that was almost impressive in its depravity. They are not just living on Caleb's salary. I realized. They are parasites. They have been feeding on you for 30 years. And now we know why they are so terrified, Miles said, closing his laptop. It is not just about the custody papers anymore. If this comes out, it is federal wire fraud. It is charity fraud. Kendra and Caleb are looking at 10 to 15 years in prison. They will not go down without a fight, I said. They already took my job. What is next? Next, Elias said, standing up and buttoning his jacket. We cut off the head of the snake. We do not just sue them for custody. Olivia, we audit them. We audit every single penny they have ever spent. He looked at me. You wanted to send them a bill, Elias asked. I think it is time we calculated the interest. I looked at the ledger. I looked at the timeline of my stolen life. Let's do it, I said. I want to see the look on her face when the account balance hits zero. I spent Saturday morning doing what I did best. I audited my own life. The conference room in the Weller building had become my command center. The table was covered in stacks of paper ledger copies, bank statements, foundation grant histories, and tax returns. To the untrained eye, it looked like a boring administrative mess. To me, it was a crime scene map. Elias sat at the head of the table, watching me work. He looked tired. The revelation about the theft from his own charitable foundation had aged him overnight. It was one thing to have a grandson-in-law who was a disappointment. It was another to realize you had been funding your own granddaughter's kidnapping for 30 years. Here, I said, sliding a highlighted spreadsheet toward him. Look at the withdrawal patterns. Elias put on his reading glasses. I see a lot of small payments, repair grants, educational stipends, medical hardship. Look at the amounts, I said. $9,500. $9,900. $9,800. They are all under 10,000, Miles said from his corner, not looking up from his laptop. Exactly, I said. It is called structuring, or smurfing. In the banking world, any cash transaction over $10,000 triggers a currency transaction report to the IRS. Kendra, or whoever was advising her, knew that, so she kept every single request just below the radar. I pointed to a cluster of dates. October 12th, 1993, my first birthday, a grant for $9,000 was issued to a M. Vane for legal consulting on a housing project. There was no housing project, but Marcus Vane is the lawyer who forged my birth certificate. She was paying him off with my money, Elias said, his voice low and dangerous. And it continues, I said, flipping the page. August 2010. Tessa turns 16. A hardship grant is issued to a C. Stewart for emergency roof repairs. $9,800. 2 days later, a new car is registered in Tessa's name. I felt a cold, hard knot in my stomach. I remembered that car. It was a red convertible. I remembered watching Tessa drive it out of the driveway while I waited for the school bus. I had asked Kendra how we could afford it, and she had told me Caleb worked extra shifts. He hadn't worked extra shifts. He had just filled out a grant application lying about a leaky roof, stealing money from the grandfather I wasn't allowed to know. It is a masterclass in fraud, Audrey said, shaking her head. But Kendra is not sophisticated enough to build this structure alone. She is greedy, but this requires knowledge of the foundation's internal approval codes. She had a partner, I said. I pulled the black ledger I had stolen from the safe. I cross-referenced the names. There is a recurring payment to someone named P. Halloway in IT security. But there is also a monthly retainer listed for consulting going back 20 years to a shell company in Shelby. Who owns the shell company? Miles asked. I ran the corporate registry this morning, I said. The registered agent is Marcus Vane, but the managing member, it is not Vane. It is a silent partner. I slid the printout across the table. It is the former director of the Weller Foundation. Elias read, George Abernathy. The room went silent. George, Elias whispered. He was my best friend. He ran the charity for 20 years. He died last year. He was approving the grants, I said. Kendra must have found something on him, or maybe Vane knew him. Somehow, they compromised him. They turned your own charity into their personal piggy bank. Elias took off his glasses. His hand was shaking. I trusted him. I trusted all of them. That is how they work, I said. They find the people who trust too much, and they bleed them dry. My phone buzzed on the table. It was the burner phone Miles had given me, but I had forwarded my main number to it so I could screen calls. Caller ID Mom. She is calling, I said. Put it on speaker, Miles said. Start the recorder. I tapped the screen. Hello? Olivia. Darling. Kendra's voice filled the room. It was not the screaming banshee from the night before. It was not the cold negotiator. It was the sweet, warm, honey-dipped voice she used when she wanted to borrow money from a neighbor. I have been so worried about you. Are you okay? I am suspended, Mom, I said flatly. I have no job. I have no income. I am sitting in my apartment wondering how I'm going to pay rent. Oh, honey, that is terrible, she said, sounding genuinely distressed. Caleb feels awful. He was just so angry. You know how he gets. He made a call he shouldn't have. We want to fix it. Fix it how? I asked. Come to dinner tonight, she said. Not at the house. We know you do not feel safe there right now. Let's meet at the Oakwood, just the four of us. A nice family dinner. We need to talk about the future. The future. We know about the DNA test. Olivia, Kendra said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Tessa showed me how to look up the case number online. We know it is a match, and we know what that means. What does it mean? I asked, playing dumb. It means you are going to be very, very wealthy, she said. And we are so happy for you. We really are. But we need to discuss how to manage this transition. We want to make sure you are protected. I looked at Elias. He nodded slowly. Go. Fine, I said. 7 o'clock. But if Caleb raises his voice, I walk. He won't, she promised. He is bringing flowers. We love you. Olivia. She hung up. She loves the bank account, Miles said. Not you. I know, I said. But I need to hear them say it. I need them to admit that they know I am the heir. If I can get them on tape trying to cut a deal for the money, it proves the motive for everything else. Be careful, Audrey warned. They are shifting tactics. They tried the stick getting you fired. It didn't work. Now they are using the carrot, and the carrot is usually poisoned. I arrived at the Oakwood at 7 sharp. It was one of the most expensive steakhouses in Raleigh, a place of dark wood, leather booths, and $50 appetizers. Caleb and Kendra were already seated in a semi-private booth in the back. Tessa was there too, wearing a dress that looked new. When I approached the table, they stood up. It was a performance. Caleb actually pulled out my chair. There was a bouquet of lilies on the table. For you, Caleb said, smiling. It was a tight, strained smile, but it was there. I am sorry about the misunderstanding at your work. I made some calls today to retract my statement. I told them I was off my medication and made a false report. You should be reinstated by Monday. You told them you were crazy, I asked, sitting down. I did what I had to do for family, Caleb said magnanimously. We ordered some champagne, Kendra said, signaling the waiter. To celebrate. Celebrate what? I asked. Yesterday I was a thief who stole your tax returns. Today we are celebrating. We are celebrating your good fortune, Kendra said. She reached across the table and took my hand. I forced myself not to recoil. Olivia, we were in shock. We were scared. We thought that man was a scammer, but now that we know he is real well, it changes things. How does it change things? It means you have an opportunity, Kendra said. An opportunity to pay us back for everything we did for you. Pay you back, I repeated. Tessa chimed in then. She looked at me with wide, teary eyes. Liv, you have to understand, it has been hard for me too. You think I am the favorite, but Mom controls everything I do. I have to dress a certain way, act a certain way. I am just as trapped as you are. For a second, I felt a flicker of pity. Tessa did look tired. Her hands were shaking slightly. Maybe she was a victim. Maybe she was just another product of Kendra's narcissism, twisted into a different shape. But then Tessa leaned in, and the mask slipped. Imagine what we could do with that money, Tessa whispered. We could buy a beach house. I could start my own business. You could finally stop working. We could be free, live, all of us. We just need to stick together. She wasn't asking for freedom. She was asking for a payout. So that is the plan, I asked, looking around the table. I claim the Weller inheritance, and I split it with you. We are a family, Caleb said, cutting into his steak. Communism within the walls. Capitalism outside. That is how dynasties work. We raised you. We protected you. It is only fair that we share in the harvest. The harvest, I said. I am a crop to you. You are an investment, Kendra corrected. She took a sip of champagne. Let's not be crude. Olivia, raising a child is expensive. We spent 30 years feeding you, clothing you, housing you. We sacrificed. Now, the investment has matured. It is time for the dividends. The word hung in the air. Dividends. I felt a cold rage settle over me. It was cleaner than anger. It was purely transactional. I have a question, I said. I picked up my water glass, watching the condensation slide down the side. Hypothetically, if I am Elias Weller's granddaughter, if I am the heir to $100 million, are you happy for me? Just for me. Not for the money, not for the dividends. Are you happy that I found my family? The table went quiet. Caleb chewed his steak. Tessa looked at her phone. Kendra looked me in the eye. She smiled. But it didn't reach her eyes. Her eyes were dead sharks. Of course we are happy. Olivia, she said smoothly. As long as you remember who raised you. There it was. The condition. The hook. Who raised me, I repeated. You mean the woman who signed a guardianship agreement in 1992 and then sold me to a fraud lawyer for $5,000? Kendra's smile faltered. We discussed this. That was a difficult time. You mean the woman who used my trust fund to buy a convertible for her other daughter? I continued. The woman who faked roof repairs to steal from a charity. Caleb stopped chewing. He put his knife down. Lower your voice. I do not think I will, I said. You talk about remembering who raised me. I remember. I remember being told I was a burden. I remember being charged for rent. I remember being the only person in the house who didn't get a Christmas present that cost more than $10. We did the best we could, Kendra hissed. You were difficult. You were always so sullen, so ungrateful. I was a child, I said. And you were billing me for my existence while stealing the money that was supposed to pay for it. I stood up. I threw the napkin on the table. I am not splitting anything with you, I said. I am not buying you a beach house. Tessa, I am not paying for your retirement. Caleb, and Mom, I am definitely not paying you a dividend. You walk away now, Caleb said, his voice low and threatening. And we will burn you. We will testify that you manipulated the old man. We will say you are mentally unstable. We will tie that money up in court for 20 years. Go ahead, I said. Testify, please. I would love to see you explain the ledger to a judge. What ledger? Kendra asked sharply. The one in your safe, I lied. I patted my bag. Oh wait, it is not in your safe anymore. It is with the forensic accountants. Kendra went white. She looked like she was going to vomit. Enjoy your dinner, I said. I hope you can pay for it, because the free ride is over. I walked out of the restaurant. I didn't look back. I knew they were staring at my back, terrified, furious, and impotent. I got into my car and drove a few blocks before pulling over to exhale. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from adrenaline. I called Elias. I have it, I said. I have them on tape calling me an investment. I have them admitting they know about the money and want a cut. Good, Elias said. Audrey wants to file the lawsuit tomorrow morning. She wants to freeze their assets and file criminal charges for the fraud. No, I said. Not yet. Why? Elias asked. You have everything. Because they still think they can fight, I said. Caleb thinks he can lie in court. Kendra thinks she can cry her way out of it. If we sue them now, it becomes a messy legal battle. They will drag my name through the mud. So what do you want to do? I want to end it, I said. I want to put them in a room where they cannot lie. I want to strip them naked in front of the world. A family meeting, Elias said. I could hear the smile in his voice. The final act. Set it up, I said. Invite everyone, the lawyers, the foundation board, the press if you have to. Tell them we are negotiating a settlement. Tell them I agreed to the dividend. You want to lure them in. I want them to walk into the trap thinking they won, I said. And then I want to close the door. I will arrange it, Elias said. Sunday morning. My house. But Olivia, are you sure? Once we do this, there is no going back. You will be destroying your mother. I looked at the dashboard of my old car. I thought about the $4 candle. I thought about the name Elowin that had been stolen from me. She is not my mother, I said. She is just a bad investment manager, and I am firing her. I hung up. The city lights blurred in front of me. I was alone, but for the first time in 31 years, I didn't feel lonely. I felt ready. The invitation for the final meeting was sent via courier on Saturday morning. It was not a request. It was a formal legal summons disguised as a brunch invitation. Location, the Weller Estate. Time, 10 o'clock in the morning. Sunday, agenda final settlement negotiation. Elias had set the stage perfectly. He had invited not just my family, but the entire board of the Weller Foundation, his personal attorneys, a notary public, and a videographer to record the proceedings for legal archiving. It was a trap, elegant and terrifying, designed to look like a surrender. But before the meeting could happen, the world had to burn a little more. By Saturday afternoon, the internet had found me, a local gossip blog, tipped off by an anonymous source that smelled distinctly of Caleb's desperation, ran a story with the headline, "The Waitress Who Seduced a Dying Tycoon." I sat in my apartment, watching the article spread. There was a photo of me from my college graduation, one I had never posted, which meant it came from Kendra's private albums placed next to a paparazzi shot of Elias getting into his limousine. The narrative was vicious. I was a gold digger. I was a manipulator. I was preying on a senile philanthropist in his final days. Anonymous User 1. Disgusting. She should be ashamed. Anonymous User 2. I know her family. They are heartbroken. She cut them off the moment she smelled cash. I did not reply. I did not deactivate my account. I took screenshots. I logged every comment, every share, every defamatory lie. I printed them out and added them to the growing stack of evidence in my living room. Silence is not weakness. Silence is just gathering ammunition. My phone was vibrating so constantly, it walked itself across the coffee table. My family was spiraling. Their strategy had dissolved into chaotic panic. At 2 o'clock, Kendra called, weeping. She left a voicemail about a mother's love, about how she had sacrificed her youth to protect me from the vultures at the Weller Estate. At 2:30, Caleb sent a text. You are making a mistake that you cannot come back from. Call off the lawyers, or the next story will be about your mental health history. At 3 o'clock, Kendra texted again, I bought your favorite cake. Please come home. We can fix this. They were oscillating like a polygraph needle during a lie. Threat, bribe, guilt, threat. They were terrified because they did not know what I had. They knew I had the DNA. They suspected I had the ledger, but they did not know if I had the will to destroy them. They were about to find out. At 4 o'clock, the pattern broke. I received a text from a number I did not recognize. Meet me at Pullen Park, by the old carousel. Come alone. I have something you need. Tessa. I debated ignoring it. It could be a setup. Caleb could be waiting there to intimidate me or stage a public scene for the gossip blogs, but my intuition, sharpened by days of paranoia, told me this was different. Tessa was not a fighter. She was a survivor, and survivors know when to jump ship. I called Miles. He agreed to park 50 yards away with a camera. The park was gray and damp, the sky threatening rain. The carousel was closed for the season, covered in a heavy tarp that flapped in the wind. Tessa was sitting on a bench, wrapped in a trench coat that looked too big for her. She wasn't wearing makeup. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun. She looked 10 years younger and incredibly small. I walked up to her but kept my distance. You have 5 minutes. Tessa. She looked up. Her eyes were red-rimmed. You are really going to do it, aren't you? You are going to put them in jail. I am going to tell the truth, I said. Where they end up depends on what they did. Tessa laughed, a brittle cracking sound. They are freaking out. Liv, Mom is pacing the kitchen drinking vodka straight from the bottle. Caleb is shredding papers in the office. They are talking about running. They are talking about moving to Costa Rica. Let them run, I said. The FBI can find them in Costa Rica. Tessa reached into her pocket. I tensed, ready to step back, but she only pulled out a small silver USB drive. I do not want to go with them, she whispered. I do not want to be an accessory. I just wanted the beach house, live. I did not know about the kidnapping. I did not know about the fake charity grants. I just thought we were smart. You knew enough to spend the money, I said cold. I was a kid, she snapped. Then her shoulders slumped. Okay, I was greedy. I admit it, but I'm not them. I do not want to go down for their crimes. She held out the USB drive. What is this? It is a backup, Tessa said. Caleb thinks he wiped the cloud server where he keeps his insurance files. He forgot I have the password to the shared drive. I downloaded this an hour ago. I took the drive. It was warm from her hand. What is on it? A video, she said. From 1992. Mom used to date a guy who was obsessed with camcorders. He filmed everything. There is a conversation on here, between Mom and the lawyer. Marcus Vane. No, Tessa said, shaking her head. Not Vane. Someone else. Someone who was helping her set up the deal. She stood up, wrapping her coat tighter. I am giving this to you, she said, her voice trembling. So that when the police come, you tell them I helped. You tell them I was on your side. You are not on my side, Tessa, I said. You are on your own side. Is there a difference anymore? She asked. She walked away, disappearing into the gray mist of the park. She didn't look back. She walked like someone fleeing a burning building. I went straight to Miles's car. We drove back to the Weller office, where Elias and Audrey were finalizing the affidavits for the next morning. Plug it in, I said, tossing the USB drive to Miles. He connected it to his laptop and pulled up the file. It was a single video file, dated November 1992. The quality was poor, grainy and flickering, typical of old home video. The camera was set up on a tripod in a living room I didn't recognize. It was cluttered, filled with smoke. Kendra was there. She was young, barely 20. She was holding a cigarette in one hand and a glass of dark liquor in the other. She looked beautiful and terrifyingly hard. Sitting across from her was a man. His back was mostly to the camera, but I could see he was wearing a cheap suit. You are sure the old man won't chase us? Kendra asked. Her voice on the tape was higher, younger, but the arrogance was the same. Elias is paralyzed by grief, the man said. His voice was distinct, oily, deep, with a heavy southern drawl. He thinks you are going to come back if he waits. By the time he realizes you are gone, the paper trail will be cold. And the baby? Kendra gestured to a bassinet in the corner. My stomach lurched. That was me. The baby is the ticket. Kenny, the man said. I froze. Kenny? Nobody called my mother Kenny. She hated nicknames. She thought they were low class. Caleb called her Kendra. Her friends called her Kendra. Keep the baby, keep the money, the man continued. As long as you have physical custody, you have a claim. If the trust tries to cut you off, we leak a story that they abandoned their grandchild. They will pay to keep it quiet. It is a perpetual income stream. I hate crying, Kendra muttered, taking a drag of her cigarette. She cries all the time. She is a $3 million asset, the man said. Let her cry. Just do not let her go. The man turned slightly to reach for an ashtray. His profile came into view. I gasped. Who is that? Elias asked. He was leaning forward, his face pale. I know him, I whispered. I have seen him at family reunions. I have seen him at Christmas parties. It wasn't Marcus Vane. Vane was the forger. This man was family. It is Uncle Ray, I said. Raymond Halloway. Halloway, Miles asked, typing furiously. The name in the ledger P. Halloway. P is for Paul, I said. Paul is his son. Ray is my mother's cousin. He works in, oh my God. What? Audrey asked. He worked in records at the hospital in Charlotte in the 90s, I said. And now he is a consultant for a medical billing firm. The inside man, Elias said. She did not just hire a lawyer. She had family on the inside. Someone who knew how to lose a file in the hospital archives. And someone who knew how to twist the knife, I added. The video ended with Ray laughing and pouring Kendra another drink. We have them, Audrey said, her voice grim satisfaction. This proves conspiracy. It proves premeditation. It proves human trafficking. Essentially, selling a child for leverage. We play this video tomorrow, Elias said. We let them lie. We let them deny everything. And then we put Ray Holloway on the screen. I looked at Elias. He was sweating. His skin had taken on a gray, waxen pallor. He was gripping the edge of the table so hard his knuckles were white. Elias, I asked, are you okay? He tried to stand up, but his legs folded. He slumped back into the chair, clutching his chest. My chest, he gasped. Heavy. Call 911, I screamed at Miles. The next hour was a blur of sirens and fluorescent lights. We rode in the ambulance to Duke University Hospital. I held Elias's hand the entire way. It was cold. Do not cancel, he wheezed, as the paramedics worked on him. The meeting, Olivia, do not cancel. Hush, I said. Just breathe. Promise me, he insisted, his grip surprisingly strong. If I die, you finish it, you burn them. I promise, I said. But you are not dying today. At the hospital, they rushed him into the cardiac unit. It was a severe angina episode, brought on by stress and his underlying heart condition. They stabilized him, but he was weak. He was hooked up to monitors, looking small and frail in the hospital bed. The doctor came out at 8 o'clock in the evening. He is stable, the doctor said, but he needs absolute rest, no stress, no movement. I went into the room. Elias was awake. I am going home, he whispered. You are staying right here, I said. The meeting is at 10, he said. If I am not there, they will think I am dead. They will think they won. They will attack the estate before the body is even cold. I will handle the meeting, I said. No, Elias said. They need to see me. They need to see that I am still the one holding the checkbook. Wheel me in if you have to, but I will be at that table. I looked at him. He was dying. Maybe not tonight, but soon. And he wanted to spend his last ounce of strength ensuring that justice was served. Okay, I said. I will talk to the doctors. We will get a medical transport. But you do not say a word. You let me do the talking. Deal, he whispered. I left the hospital at 9 o'clock. I drove back to my apartment to change clothes and get the files. The city was quiet. It was Sunday night. Most people were preparing for the work week. I was preparing for a demolition. I walked into my apartment. It felt different. It wasn't just a place where I slept anymore. It was a staging ground. I laid out my outfit for the morning. A black suit, sharp, professional. Not the clothes of a payroll manager, the clothes of a CEO. My phone buzzed. One last text from Kendra. See you tomorrow. Sweetie, we are so excited to celebrate with you. Love, Mom. I looked at the text. I looked at the USB drive sitting on my dresser. I looked at the black ledger. They thought they were coming to a celebration. They thought they were coming to sign a non-disclosure agreement and walk away with a check. They thought they were going to manipulate a confused young woman and a dying old man. They didn't know about Ray Holloway. They didn't know about the video. They didn't know that Elias was willing to risk his life to see them fall. And they didn't know that Olivia Stewart was gone. I turned off the lights. I sat in the dark, listening to the hum of the city. Tomorrow, the bomb would go off. I just hoped I was far enough away from the blast radius to survive it. But looking at the scars on my wrist, the invisible ones, not the birthmark, I realized I had been living in the blast radius for 30 years. I wasn't afraid of the fire anymore. I was the match. The morning of the final meeting was brilliant and cold, the kind of winter sunlight that exposes every speck of dust on a window pane. I rode in the medical transport van with Elias. He was sitting in a wheelchair, hooked up to a portable oxygen concentrator, his skin the color of parchment, but his eyes were clear. They were burning with the kind of final, desperate energy that keeps a dying star bright right before it collapses. The Weller estate was not a home. It was a fortress of brick and ivy that sat on the edge of the city like a judge looking down on the defendants. When we rolled into the main drawing room, the stage was already set. A long table had been brought in. At one end sat the legal team, Audrey Sloan and 2 junior associates. At the other end, looking uncomfortable in their Sunday best, was my family. Kendra wore a pale blue dress, modest and motherly. Caleb was in a suit that was slightly too tight across the shoulders. Tessa wore white, looking innocent and wide-eyed. They stood up when I entered, smiles plastered on their faces like decals. "Olivia," Kendra exclaimed, rushing forward. "Oh, and Mr. Weller, we are so honored to be here." She stopped short when she saw the oxygen tube. A flicker of calculation crossed her face. "He is weaker than I thought," before she masked it with concern. "Please, sit," Elias rasped. He waved a hand, dismissing the pleasantries. "We have a lot to get through." The room was silent as the doors closed. A videographer in the corner checked his lens. A notary public sat with her stamp ready. It felt less like a family brunch and more like a tribunal at The Hague. "We are here to discuss the settlement," Caleb said, taking charge. He leaned back, confident. "We understand that Olivia has been acknowledged as your heir. We are very happy for her, naturally, as her guardians for the past 30 years. We expect a transition package, reimbursement for expenses, a stipend for emotional distress caused by the secrecy." "Expenses," Elias repeated. He looked at Audrey. Audrey opened a thick file. "We have calculated the expenses. Mr. Stewart, based on the lifestyle you provided Olivia compared to the lifestyle provided to your biological daughter, Tessa, we estimate you spent approximately 18% of your household income on Olivia, while Tessa received nearly 60%. "That is ridiculous," Kendra laughed nervously. "We treated them equally. We are a loving family." "Is that so?" I asked. I spoke for the first time, my voice low. I was sitting next to Elias, my hands folded on the table. "Do you want to tell them about the rent, Mom, or the time you made me pay for my own prom dress while you bought Tessa a car?" "We were teaching you responsibility," Kendra said, her voice rising to that familiar, preachy pitch. "We were building your character. Look at you now. You are strong, you are independent. You should be thanking us." She looked at Elias, her eyes filling with tears on command. "Mr. Weller, you have to understand. I was a single mother. I was terrified. I took Olivia to protect her from the pressure of your world. I sacrificed my own happiness to give her a normal life. I worked double shifts. I scrubbed floors. I gave up everything for this child." It was a beautiful performance. If I didn't know the truth, I might have applauded. "You sacrificed," Elias said. He reached for a folder on the table. "Let us talk about those sacrifices, specifically, the financial ones." He slid the black ledger across the table. Kendra stopped crying instantly. Her eyes locked onto the book. "Where did you get that?" she whispered. "From your safe," I said. "Friday night, while you were busy threatening me." "This is stolen property," Caleb shouted, standing up. "This is inadmissible. This is not a court of law yet." "Caleb," Audrey said calmly, "this is a settlement negotiation. And right now, this ledger lists $340,000 in illegal withdrawals from the Weller Foundation over a period of 20 years. Withdrawals made by you, Kendra, using false names and fraudulent hardship claims." "That is a lie," Kendra said. She was shaking. "I never took a dime. Someone must have forged my name." "We thought you might say that," Elias said. "Which is why we invited a special guest." The side door of the drawing room opened. Miles Red walked in, and behind him, looking gray and terrified, walked a man in a rumpled suit. It was Raymond Halloway, Uncle Ray. Kendra gasped. It was a sound like a balloon popping. She grabbed the edge of the table. Ray. I am sorry, Kenny, Ray said. He didn't look at her. He looked at the floor. They have the video. They have the bank records from the Cayman account. I am not going to prison for you. I have grandkids. What video? Tessa asked, her voice trembling. Miles pressed a button on a remote. A large screen on the wall flickered to life. The grainy footage from 1992 filled the room. Keep the baby. Keep the money. Kendra's voice echoed in the opulent room. She is a $3 million asset. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the silence of a bomb that has detonated, but the sound wave hasn't hit you yet. I looked at Caleb. He was staring at the screen, his mouth open. He hadn't known about the video. He knew about the fraud. Sure, but he didn't know that his wife had explicitly planned to traffic her own child before she even met him. You filmed it, Caleb whispered, looking at Kendra with horror. You were dumb enough to let Ray film it. It was insurance, Kendra screamed. She stood up, knocking her chair over. It was supposed to be insurance in case Ray tried to double-cross me. I never meant for anyone to see it. So you admit it, Elias said. His voice was weak, but it cut through the room like a razor. You admit that you did not run to protect Olivia. You ran to leverage her. I did what I had to do, Kendra shouted. She turned to me, her face twisted and ugly. You think you would have been happy with them? They are cold. They are snobs. I gave you a real home. You gave me a bill, I said. You gave me a life where I felt like I owed you for existing. And you do owe me, she screeched. I fed you, I clothed you, I put up with your moody, ungrateful attitude for 30 years, and now you are going to take the money and leave me with nothing after everything I did. Sit down, Kendra, Audrey said. We are not done. Elias took a deep breath. He adjusted his oxygen tube. There is one more thing, he said. He looked at me. Something even you do not know. Olivia. I looked at him, surprised. What's the scholarship? Elias said. The anonymous scholarship you received in your junior year of college. The one that paid off your tuition so you could stop working the night shift. I remembered it. It had saved me. It had come out of nowhere, from a private donor who admired my academic record. That was you, I asked. I had a PI tracking you back then. Elias said, he couldn't get close enough to prove your identity without alerting Kendra. But he told me you were struggling. He told me you were tired. I couldn't claim you yet. The lawyer said we didn't have enough proof to override the birth certificate, but I could help you. So I set up the fund. He looked at Kendra. I tried to send more, Elias said. I tried to send a graduation gift, $10,000, but the check was intercepted. Someone at your address cashed it. I looked at the ledger again, May 2016. Cash deposit, $10,000. You stole my graduation money, I said to Kendra. You told me the scholarship ended. You told me I had to take out a loan for my final semester. We needed the money for the house repairs, Kendra cried. The foundation was cracking. We would have lost the house. We did it for all of us. You did it for you, I said. Caleb slammed his hand on the table. Enough. This is a setup. You lured us here to humiliate us. We are leaving. Come on. Kendra. Tessa. He grabbed Kendra's arm. If you walk out that door, Audrey said, the police officers waiting in the hallway will arrest you for grand larceny, wire fraud, and identity theft. We have already filed the charges. Caleb froze. He looked at the door. He looked at the window. He was a trapped animal. You can't do that, Caleb stammered. We can make a deal. Olivia, Liv, listen to me. We are family. You can't send your parents to jail. You are not my parent, Caleb, I said. You are my mother's accomplice. Tessa. Caleb turned to his daughter. Talk to her. Tell her. Tessa was sitting perfectly still. She was staring at the screen where the video had paused on Kendra's face. She looked at me. Then she looked at her mother. You stole from the charity to buy my car, Tessa asked quietly. Honey, Kendra started. Did you? Tessa screamed. Yes, Kendra sobbed. Because I wanted you to have nice things. I wanted you to be happy. I didn't want you to be like her. She pointed at me. Like me? I asked. You mean honest? I mean boring. Kendra spat. You were always so boring. Olivia, so serious. You never had any spark. Tessa had spark. She deserved the world. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. It was the final truth. She simply didn't like me. She never had. I am done, Tessa said. She stood up and walked over to stand behind my chair. I am not going to jail for you. Mom, I gave them the video. Kendra looked at Tessa like she had been shot. You what? I gave them the USB drive, Tessa said. I am done being your doll. Kendra collapsed into her chair. She put her head in her hands and wailed. It was a loud, ugly sound. Here are the terms, Elias said. His voice was getting weaker, but he pushed through. 1. Olivia Elowyn Weller is recognized as my sole heir. 2. The Weller Trust will seek full restitution for the $340,000 stolen. We will seize your house. We will seize your cars. We will seize your bank accounts. You can't take the house, Caleb whispered. It is all we have. It was bought with my son's money, Elias said. It belongs to the estate. 3. Elias continued. We will recommend leniency on the prison sentence if, and only if, you sign a full confession today admitting to the abduction and the fraud. If you sign, you might get 5 years instead of 15. If you fight, we will destroy you. He slid a document across the table. Kendra looked up. Her makeup was smeared. She looked old. She looked at me. Olivia, she whispered. Please, I am your mother. I carried you. You carried me, I said. And then you put me down the moment I became heavy. I stood up. I walked over to her. I looked down at the woman who had defined my worth for 30 years. Do not push me into a cell, she begged. Please. I am not pushing you, Kendra, I said. You built the cell yourself. You locked the door from the inside 30 years ago. I am just finally turning on the lights so you can see where you live. She stared at me. Then, with a shaking hand, she picked up the pen. She signed. Caleb signed next. Defeated. His arrogance deflated like a punctured tire. It is done, Audrey said. She signaled the officers in the hall. They came in quietly. There were no handcuffs, just a firm hand on the elbow. Ms. Stewart, Mr. Stewart, you need to come with us for processing. As they led Kendra out, she didn't look back at me. She looked at the expensive curtains, the chandelier, the furniture. She was looking at the life she had almost stolen, mourning the money, not the daughter. When the doors closed, the room felt incredibly large and quiet. Tessa was still standing behind me. What happens to me? She asked. You work, I said, turning to her. You get a job, you pay your own rent, and maybe, in a few years, we can get coffee. But not today. Tessa nodded. She walked out, alone. It was just me and Elias. He slumped in his wheelchair, the adrenaline fading, leaving him exhausted. We did it, he whispered. We did it, I said. I sat down beside him and took his hand. He reached into his pocket. His fingers were clumsy. Fumbling, he pulled out a small velvet pouch. I wanted to give you this, he said. It belonged to my son, your father. He opened the pouch. Inside was a heavy gold signet ring, the same one I had seen on his finger that first day, but smaller, a man's ring, but sized down. He wore this every day, Elias said. He was wearing it when he met Kendra. He took it off the day you were born because he was afraid he would scratch you with it. He placed the ring in my palm. It was warm. The crest, the hawk, and the key gleamed in the sunlight. I cannot buy back your childhood, Olivia, Elias said. His eyes were wet. I cannot pay you for the years you felt invisible. I cannot fix the nights you cried yourself to sleep. Money does not fix time. He closed my fingers over the ring. But I can give you this, he said. I can give you your name back. You are not Olivia Stewart, the unwanted stepdaughter. You are Olivia Weller, and you belong here." I looked at the ring. I slid it onto my middle finger. It fit perfectly. "Thank you, grandfather," I said. He smiled. It was a real smile, peaceful and complete. "You can call me Elias if you want. I know grandfather takes time." "Elias," I agreed. I stood up and walked to the window. I looked out at the sprawling estate, the gardens, the city beyond. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was looking at a world I wasn't allowed to touch. I wasn't the girl standing on the edge of the photo anymore, half cropped out to make room for someone else. I was in the center of the frame. The focus was sharp, the lighting was perfect, and for the first time, I liked the picture. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I would love to know where you are tuning in from. Are you listening on your commute, at the gym, or maybe relaxing at home? Please let me know in the comments below. I really enjoy reading your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe to Maya Revenge Stories. Like this video, and hit that hype button to help this story reach more people who need to hear that the truth always finds a way to the light.